All right, we're back. This time is usually lately it's been three people having a conversation, but this time it's gonna be Dedo and I because we both I would say I think it's fair to say like we're both being impacted by the story of Odin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this conversation is gonna be about Odin and his story. You know, it's a play on the word, Odin is meant to be boiled. Leaders are meant to be legends. And we're also going to be
Mm.
touching on the recent case of ASAP Rocky as well. Nedo and I were just talking about that a few days ago, the idea. And then even like our men's night that we did, what was it,
Mm.
Friday? We kind of, all these things kind of tied together with what we saw in the Scarborough movie called Morningside, right?
Right,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that's a good
yeah.
point. Hmm.
So, one of the first things I'd like to say about Odin and his arc, well, his flashback, I should say, is that leaders are always ones that go against the grain. You
Hmm.
can't do anything significant if you're trying to appeal to everybody.
Hmm.
Just generally speaking, people, not everyone's gonna like you. Um, I've had push you, Ned and I. We've talked about all the experiences. I don't know. I've never talked to you about your experience, but I've had like about like all my work experiences getting pushed back for like the things
Hmm.
I say and the work I do. I don't know if you have any experience that in terms of.
Hmm. Yeah, a little bit. Like I think it was largely working sometimes in predominantly white spaces. Like I think I generally had I was lucky because I had some really solid coworkers who would support me, but I think it was when I went to management with some of my concerns around like just the lack of thoughtfulness when it came to blackness or even just any type of intersectionality, where I
Mm,
would get like sometimes a gentle pushback, sometimes well that's like, not a problem for us, or sometimes it's like, oh well, you should talk to the one black or indigenous person management about that, and I'm just like, that's not really the kind of response I was looking for. um so yeah, I don't think it hasn't been to the same extent as you for sure, because I was never really in leadership roles at those times.
mm.
um but I think when you do point out those things that aren't being thought of, aren't being looked at, there's always a pushback, especially when there's this idea it's like, well, that's going to take a lot of time and effort, and we just don't want to do that.
Yeah, and you're actually making me think of so I've been actually looking at a lot of like African leaders and prominent leaders throughout history lately.
Hmm.
Just doing some research in terms of our ancestry, and there's a lot of leaders who've done some significant things, and for the most part, like three names, I'll just throw it out there. Thomas Sankara from Burkina Faso,
Mm.
Nelson Mandela, and even the current leader of Burkina Faso right now, Ibrahim Traore. Like,
Mm.
I don't even think the UN acknowledges him as like the I think it's president or is it
Oh,
prime minister in Burkina Faso. I don't know which one.
I actually don't know. I'm gonna embarrass myself and say I'm not sure once.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but we'll go with I think it's president.
I think it's actually prime minister. I just had to look it up because, yeah, prime minister.
Yeah, the current
Hmm.
prime minister, they're not going to they haven't even acknowledged him. So even for him, with all the great
Wow.
things he's doing,
Hmm.
now everyone is liking him, especially France. France doesn't like him,
Oh, of course not.
right? And it made me think of Odin. So you remember when Odin saved Nekomamushi, Inuarashi, and Kawamatsu,
Yeah.
from being captured, towards the end of the flashback, and he was reprimanding his people, right?
Hmm.
He wasn't even in agreement with how they were treating those like
Hmm.
anthropomorphic children, right?
Yeah.
He said, what was it? You should be ashamed of yourselves. You fear what's different out of ignorance. It's
Hmm.
pathetic to torment such little creatures,
Mm. Hmm.
right? That just
Yeah.
shows his character. He's always been the type of
Yeah.
person to go against the grain. Even in fact, like, as in terms of Wano and One Piece, Wano is a representation of Japan, and Wano is an isolationist country
Yeah.
slash island. And what was the thing that Odin tried to do many times? Leave.
Yeah. We tried to leave. Yeah.
The
Oh,
one
also,
thing they tell you not to do. Sorry, go on.
no, I was just gonna say, Jess, actually, I have to correct myself before someone corrects you. So it seems that Thomas Sankara was the former prime minister of
Yeah,
Burkina Faso,
yeah.
but it's listing Ibrahim Traoré as the president of the transition of Burkina Faso. So you were
Ah,
correct. So yes, I just
okay.
want to make sure that we put that on record. Anyway, please
All
continue.
right. I was right. But yeah, no, that's exactly it. And you can see even with those leaders, there's an aspect of representing culture, but at the same time challenging it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, Even with both like Sankara and Shore, you saw like whenever they're going to like international meetings, they're wearing either African attire, they're wearing their military garb, right? They're always staying true to who they are, even in terms of going back to Odin, right? During the flashbacks when he's on, I forgot what the Gold Roger ship is called.
Oh shoot!
I saw it. I was looking at it. I was reading up on it yesterday. And I forgot the name again. It's gonna bother me. I don't know if you're.
I'm on
You're
the
on it.
case.
I appreciate it.
I'm on
Well, in the
case.
meantime, like
Oro Jackson.
Oro Jackson. There we go. Such a weird. Oh, Oro. Go. Okay, clever. Okay, I saw what Oda did there. Oro means, if I remember correctly, it means gold. Anyways, when they're on the Oro Jackson, what Odin is wearing traditional Wano / Japanese attire. Even like when everyone's drinking out of sake bottles, everyone's drinking out of like bottles and glasses. He's drinking out of a sake glass, right?
Yeah.
He's always representing his culture and his people. He's never deviating from it, but at the same time, he's challenging it. And I think in terms of leadership, you have to kind of toe that line of respecting culture, but also, how would I word it, challenging backwards way of doing things. I would say, especially within, and, you know, we're gonna have an episode on it through Black Panther, but it's just the idea of like within, I'd say especially African culture, and I would say somewhat Caribbean culture, is that we have this, how would I word this reverence for culture, where you're not like, I'll put all my money on this right now. Neto, you don't watch Nollywood movies.
Not nearly enough.
Do you like them though?
I do actually, yeah.
Okay, now I'm shocked. I lost all my money. Go on.
No, I've only seen a couple, but that was a long time ago. But like now, there's a whole bunch on Netflix. I've got a bunch that I've like listed to watch. It just haven't done so yet. Yeah.
Okay, maybe the modern ones. I haven't given the modern ones a try. I'm talking about like when our parents would like get us to watch when we were kids. Like,
oh, okay, like old school. I haven't seen those in like over 2 decades.
I don't have the patience for it, and like I don't like. You poison the fufu in a goosey soup, and I'm watching someone eat for 10 minutes and then they choke. I'm just
that's a real.
Why am I watching? He's drinking water, he's talking to someone, and I'm like, bro, you were supposed to be dead like 2 minutes ago. Like, what are we doing?
It's a real case of what's the word I'm looking for now? I can't even remember, but it's the gun under the table. Except the gun's under the table for like an hour and a half. You know, like.
Just do the thing. Like, why am I watching someone? Like, if I was hungry for fufu and goosey soup, I'd go get some right now. I'm trying to watch a movie. Or like the scene where, like, you know, they're walking down the dirt road for like 5 minutes. You're just like, yes, they left. You don't have to keep playing the song.
Yeah, like it's like there's the parts where you cut out. Yeah.
And they're walking to the market. I know you just cut to when they get to the market, please. Cut to when they get to the market.
Yeah.
And they're even like talking to random people during the market. And it's like, can you just get the poison or whatever it is in the market?
I know what's gonna happen.
Get to the point. Get to the point.
You know, yeah, that stuff is wild. I do kind of appreciate that a little bit, but I think I'm just like, you know, if you watch it, it's kind of similar if you watch old Kurosawa films, where it's just like there's Kurosawa films, yeah, where there's just like these long moments of people just kind of doing random stuff, and you're just like, why though? But at the same time, sometimes, again, like, I'm not saying this is always on the same level, but sometimes I just find like the texture of the setting can be very entertaining for me. So yeah, I think that's part of it.
I actually,
but you're not wrong.
Films. I actually, as much as I have a reverence for Kurosawa, I've actually sat down and watched his films. So you're inspiring me to do that. I want to actually watch Zato Ichi.
It's a good one.
Yeah, because like it's referenced in Guilty Gear, funny enough, and then, you know, Fujitora is like literally Zato.
Literally, yeah.
And then, you know, they even reference. By the way, just side point, like the way they reference Kurosawa in the Wano arc. You know, when the bro, I lost it. I saved it on my phone. Like, I was just like, no, this is peak. Like, you guys didn't have to do a black and white scene.
That was so fucking cool. That whole scene was fantastic. Yeah, that was incredible.
It's in my top 5 scenes for that arc. I was just like, you guys did not need to do that. You guys did not need to go that hard.
The animators went so hard that arc. It was incredible.
Peak. Absolute cinema. I was like, I even called my boy. I was like, they reference Kurosawa. And you know, the thing that upset me the most is the fact that most people didn't even realize it was a Kurosawa reference.
Oh, really?
At least on when I went to YouTube to watch the scene, because I would say comments in the YouTube section is a good
Mhm.
idea for how many people understood something, and like only
Sure.
like there's good few likes for those comments, but there's only two comments where people mentioned Kurosawa. Most people just
Wow.
are like, oh, black and white, because like this time, no, Kurosawa,
Yeah,
not
specifically.
Samurai. Kurosawa. Don't
Yeah.
ever disrespect him like that.
I'm just surprised, but I guess there are a lot of younger fans and stuff too, so I guess that does make some level of sense.
And most people don't know. Like I know about Kurosawa because of Guilty Gear, because one of the characters he's blind, and his
Hmm.
name
Hmm.
is Zato One. Get it?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like way back when I started playing Guilty Gear when I was like
Hmm.
17, 18, I was like, who's Zato Ichi? And then I searched up Zato Ichi, and then that's how I found out about Kurosawa. But like,
Hmm.
unless
Hmm.
you're kind of been exposed to those things, you're
Yeah.
not really gonna figure
That's
out.
yeah, that's a fair point. If you're a
Yeah.
note maker, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like, was that? I was like, so when I saw, I was like, absolutely. Got my hands up right now for those who are
Yeah.
listening. My hands up right now. It's like, um,
Amazing.
but yeah,
Hmm.
where was I?
Oh.
Yeah, there's a challenge, and at the same time, there's a respect
Hmm.
for that culture. You have to kind of toe that line. And like I said, for us, we tend to, within African, when I look at African culture, when I look at,
Hmm.
at this side of my family being Caribbean, I always found like we have to just do it no
Hmm.
matter what. And if you don't do it or accept it, like I was brought up on Nollywood movies,
Hmm.
it's almost like you're anti-culture, anti-Nigerian, anti-black.
Hmm.
If you don't want to do everything,
Yeah.
you gotta like reggae, you gotta like soca, you gotta like
Hmm.
Afrobeat. You only watch Nollywood movies. You only eat Nigerian food. You
Hmm.
only eat treaty food. And unless you're doing those things,
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for? Your figurative black card
Oof.
is
Yeah.
immediately revoked,
Yeah.
immediately and permanently.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's like a very true like thing that happens like within our culture, and I think it's really like, and it's damaging too, right? Because like, I mean, I've said before, like I really don't like when we put people in boxes, and I think that's what happens, right? You put people in boxes, and that could lead to some pretty brutal outcomes. Like obviously I can't get into details, but I work with a lot of young folks who family of immigrants, and like, and so a lot of young people I've worked with and to Scott talked to have come out saying things like, I really like that, like actually feeling like they hate their culture. And when we're able to work through a lot of stuff, there's a lot more understanding, especially when we talk about their values. There's these things where like they find out like, oh, I actually value a lot of things my culture values. What I don't value is the way in which we keep practicing this stuff, right? And so that's where it is, where they're just like, yeah, I actually care about this stuff. I care about these things, but like the way in which it's being put upon me, the way that we keep doing these things, the way that we're completely unquestioning, really feels wrong. And I think Odin's a perfect example of that, right? Like I like how you pointed out that he never once changes out of his garb. He's always drinking out of sake cups. Like the thing that's so interesting, and I'm sure we'll go over this, is that he's such a unruly child growing up, and he's like, oh, he doesn't value tradition. The thing is that like seems the way Odin is, it's like he's always watching and paying attention to things. Like he's always watching and paying attention to things. So and so he still does those things. Like those actions, those traditions still have deep meaning to him, even if he's not talking about them openly. But he still does them. He's just also willing to act in a way that's like, hey, this is actually kind of damaging. And that example you had of him scolding those people who were stringing up Kawamatsu, Nekomamushi, and Inurashi is a perfect example. He's just like, what are you ignorant rubes doing? Like these are kids. Leave them alone.
No, and that's exactly it, right? And we have to kind of, there's almost like I said, like this blind reverence for it. And even
Hmm.
you're getting me even to think of some of the young people that we were with, Friday,
Hmm.
all the ones I brought. I won't name them. I won't put their names specifically out there, but
Hmm.
a lot of them have those same sentiments of like, I love my culture, but I don't like these things about my culture. And because they're not doing this absolute blinded reverence
Hmm.
for the culture, you're 100% against the culture,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, no, like they go to Caravana, they go to these things, but like they don't want to be a gallus, because
Hmm.
that's what you're expected. For those that don't know what gallus means, like you're a ladies' man, playboy. It's a
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
a more of a Jamaican slang, but it's a
Yep.
Caribbean but Jamaican slang. And
Hmm.
unless you are this, you might as well say you're not Caribbean, or you might as well
Hmm.
say you're not African. It's just like you don't have to be all these things to
Yeah.
be for one's culture.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I would also like to add, like, how would I word this? So for me, I really related to when I started really. I kind of first of all, I thought Odin was huge and his outfit was ridiculous. But I mean, that's Odin. That's Oda's design. But I started relating to Odin from the Nine Red Scabbards.
Hmm.
I say that because a lot of a lot of the young guys that came Friday, they looked to me as a leader,
Hmm.
and it hit me because when I met all of them, they were all doing foolishness. They were
Hmm.
all like
Hmm.
doing foolishness, and they were interesting to say the least. They were characters. They still
Yeah.
are, as you saw Friday. They're still
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
And the thing I loved about Odin's story that really resonated with me the most was, like I said, his leadership, specifically how he raised the bar for everybody around him.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. So, like, just to kind of touch on everybody that I'll just speak on, because like they were all like just so like whenever people were talking about them, they were all referred to as vagrants, local
Mm.
thugs, and losers. Quote unquote losers. I don't really like the term losers because it tends to be associated with men who aren't doing enough, quote unquote.
Mm.
But
Hmm.
they were labeled as losers, right? When we look at Kinemon, Kinemon
Hmm.
was the guy during Wano. He was
Yeah.
him. He was like, I would say second in command next to like, yeah, he was one of the commanders next to like Luffy, Law, and Kid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if you going back on the Flash, this man had like blonde hair.
He was
I
just
was like,
running
what?
local jobs. He
Sorry?
was a bit of a yeah. He was like a vagrant. He was just running around stealing stuff. He had a girl back home that just barely putting up with him. Yeah, it was a whole thing.
Trying to steal from his girl and shit. Yeah, like
Oh boy.
he was a loser. In fact, like yeah, he was a loser. He wasn't doing much. In fact, like, and he made a really powerful point, and I think that speaks to a lot of like the male experience. When I forgot her name. I forgot her name. But
His partner,
yeah, I think it's
Suru.
Suru.
Suru. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Suru. Shout out to me. And thank you. When Suru was just like, don't you realize if you keep doing these dangerous things, you're gonna die? And Kinemon made a really good point.
Mm.
Um, what was it? No one will mourn my death.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of young men and boys who think like that, right? Who just like, and some of them, there can be some truth to it where, like, you're not valued unless you're doing something for others. And if you're gone now, no one is really going to think about it. Like, we all know the self, I got to use very social media friendly terms, the self deletion rate among young boys, men, and old men is very high for that reason, right? Because of that mentality of
Mm-hmm.
no one will mourn my death. I don't know if you have any if you have any experience on the whole self deletion thing within the within men, and
Mm.
how high it is as a therapist.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely correct. Like, it's the case that oftentimes men are higher success rate of self-deletion
Yeah,
because of A, that mentality, B, the
method.
large like the epidemic of male loneliness, and C, like you're saying, the method used is often much more violent, much more permanent. So it's a lot higher, and it's a huge issue.
Yeah, and so you're seeing Keenon have that mentality. Well, now if you look at Wano, it's like, yo, this guy he's the second in command after Momonosuke, right?
Yeah,
And then you had Denjiro, who was basically like, they didn't know what to call him, but he's basically a con artist.
yeah,
He was just a straight up con artist. He was like swindling people of their money. And
yeah.
then there's a really good quote that even he used. Actually, I'll get back to it.
Okay.
I'll get back to it.
All right.
Yeah, Denjiro was a con artist.
Mhm.
Izo and Kikunojo. There we go. They
Mhm.
got some. Yo,
Mm.
Oda really went for some real Japanese
Yeah,
names.
yeah, yeah.
Kikunojo, they were traveling dancing orphans.
Mhm.
Kanjuro,
Mhm.
he still is though, but
Yeah,
Kanjuro was a creepy night stalker. He just
yeah,
became a creepy traitor.
yeah,
Raizo was excommunicated from the shinobi and became a bandit.
yeah,
Astra Doji was just the lawless ruler of Kuri.
yeah,
Inuarashi, Nekomamushi, and Kawamasu were orphans.
yeah.
right? So none of them had anything going on in society and in the community,
Hmm.
but them meeting Odin changed who they were. In fact, even like when Odin found Inurashi, Nekomamushi, and Kawamatsu, right? They were eating Odin, and then
Hmm.
Nekomamushi like threw the pot over because he
Yeah,
was burning his tongue. By the way, I don't. Are cats actually have a hard time eating hot food? I was actually curious about that, but I never looked it
I
up.
actually have no idea. I have no idea.
Knowing Odin, I wouldn't be surprised if it's true because
Yeah, no
Odin will
kidding.
put in some like obscure stuff where I'm like, why would you know that? He's like, yeah. And then I'm pretty sure he has like a pet cat. That's why he knows
He
this.
must.
And he probably tried to give the cat Odin, and that's how he thought of the Ark of Odin.
Yeah. He's like, oh my god,
I got it.
genius.
Flashback, Wano, I got this.
Yeah, I could see the vision.
Right. But yeah, no, like because of that kind of stuff, even when they threw the pot over, Kawamatsu started eating it, off the floor because he's like, I've never had someone be so kind to me. And
Mm,
then Neko Mamushi, the same thing, because they reciprocated his kindness because of the kindness that he gave them. And
mhm,
the thing that made, and this is an interesting thing about, I've been really reflecting on the idea of power, especially since reading the last issue of Marvel's The Ultimate.
mm,
And I think that the people that we need most in power are the people who do not want to be in power.
mm, mhm,
Oftentimes, the thing I've seen with those with very prominent leaders throughout society, this is not even just within the diaspora, but just globally, is
mhm.
a person who did not want to take the position.
Right.
Uh, the term is, there's three ways of saying it, which is noblesse oblige.
Mm,
Those, and an expanded way of that phrase is from the Bible: to whom much is given, much is expected.
right. Yeah.
And then the more modern retelling of that is, with
Mm.
great
Great
power
power. Yeah.
comes
Great responsibility. Yeah. Old Uncle Ben.
good old Uncle Ben, right? And
Yeah.
we have to kind of look at that, because there are some people who just want power for the sake of it,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
there's people who do not want it. And I think we need to kind of reflect on, because oftentimes we feel that we feel that if someone is gay, they won't misuse power. If they're trans, if they're black, if they're white, if they are poor, if they are rich, they won't misuse power. But it's more than just that. It's a human thing, and we need to take a more nuanced look at power in relation to human beings, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
um I don't know if you've seen, like, I've seen on my feed, there's been like a rise in I have to use, once again, social media terms, female diddlers in schools,
Mm,
right? And I was having a conversation with one of my friends, whom and she was saying how, oftentimes she would see like things of like horrible things men did, and then she's also seen like the rise of diddler stuff within female teachers. And we were just kind of talking about, like, it's not so much that men are predisposed to
mm,
acts of violence and crimes, it's just that they're bigger. If you're bigger than somebody, it's a lot
hmm.
easier for you to use that power over them. If you have a
Yeah.
higher position than someone, it's a lot easier for you to use that power over them. We have to really, like I said, have a more nuanced way of looking at power in relation to people,
Hmm.
and screening the right people for those positions of power. I don't know if you wanted to kind of speak on that, but
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'd say as far as that rise, like it's one of those things that it was always there, except like for first of all, like you said, because it's more often found in men, because men are often bigger and are in more often positions of authority,
yeah,
and often rewarded for like it's rewarded for certain types of behavior that put
yeah,
them in those types of positions. So
yeah,
it'll happen more commonly, right? Because of
right,
the world we live in, because of society, all that stuff. Having said that, they've women and femmes in those types of positions have always been there. It's happened that it's
social
often
media,
less reported on because of
yeah,
such things. It's also the case too. I mean, if we look at everywhere from again, if we're looking at a Canadian example, if you look at those residential schools here in Canada, right, where Indigenous folks were often sexually exploited by the nuns working at these places too, right? So it's about that access to power and that access to unchecked power that gives people that allows incredibly unsafe people with that don't even need to pass certain qualifications to be able to be in these spaces. So yeah, it's it's pretty horrible, and it's important that we're talking about these things because, again, in the case of you know, we talk about like more often like young boys being in position in very vulnerable positions, but it's not talked about or it's not acknowledged or, more talks about it, and it's like, oh, well, what are you, a wuss? Like it's really just we got to get our minds out to understand that this can happen on all levels to a lot of people. We need to make sure people feel safe talking about it.
No, that's exactly, and like I said, we have to have a more nuanced understanding
Yeah.
of it, really like looking at
Hmm.
who those people are who want to be in those positions of power. And also, as you said too, there was a good point, which is like having those checks and balances, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
because we see we'll get to him, but we can see with Orochi, like
Mm.
he just fully explained. And I guess you could say kind of Kaido, but like Kaido wasn't trying to pretend to be a good person. He was like, I'm here to exploit you guys. I'm
Yeah.
here to exploit you, the labor, which is you people,
Yeah.
and I'm here to exploit your land.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
going to use that to take over more land and
Hmm.
exploit those people
Yeah.
and their land. And I'm going to just keep just proliferating colonialism. That's what I'm
Yeah.
here for. I'm not trying to. I don't want to see you guys prosper.
Yeah. 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 He said what he was. He said his plans around the tin. He's like, yeah, that's it. That's me.
Yeah,
That's
I
us.
don't want to. Seeing you guys prosper is going to have a negative impact on me, actually. So I'm going to
Yeah.
go out of my way to keep you guys from living
Hmm.
your best lives. That's
Yeah.
what I'm here to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Orochi here is here to support me in this endeavor because he
Yeah.
also doesn't want to see you guys prosper. That we both have that in common.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna get to it, so I guess we don't need to talk about Orochi specifically
Yeah,
yet, or
we'll get to
oh,
Orochi.
oh,
Yeah, yeah. But
yeah.
like the thing I loved about that, going back to Odin, he
Hmm.
really set the bar for everybody. Like Kinemon, like I said, became was like
Hmm.
one of the top commanders during the Onigushima.
Onigashima.
Thank you. It's such a he just Oda really just put really long words and names. And I'm usually
Yeah.
good, I'm good with names and words, but
Yeah. Yeah.
this I was like, ah, man.
Yeah. You went all out
Um,
here.
Onigushima, did I get it?
Yes.
Yes, the Onigushima arc, like Kinemon was like one of the leaders for it, and I love that because like with a lot of like yesterday I was talking with one of my young guys. Sorry, not
Hmm.
yesterday, Friday, and he was saying how the main reason he wants to get into community work is because of the impact I've had on him.
Mm.
Because like what was his words? He said, "I wouldn't be the man I am today if I didn't meet you, and I want
Mm.
to do that for someone else."
That's awesome.
And a lot of them have said that, right? And so
Hmm.
there's a standard I there's a standard I set for myself, which by in so doing sets the standard for the people around me. And I think
Hmm.
that's an important thing as a leader,
Yeah.
right? There's a when I was rewatching the Odin's flashback, one of the things I came to the realization of Odin didn't make the 9 red scabbards. The 9 red scabbards were made for him.
Hmm.
So what
Mm.
I mean by that was, he gave them a level of responsibility. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, there we go. It's right here.
Hmm.
When Odin became the daimyo, which
Yeah.
we'll also talk about that aspect of how he came to be.
Yeah.
He looked at his followers, if you will, and he said, "Now that I'm daimyo,
Hmm.
now a daimyo requires retainers. I don't want to be assigned some stuffy, stuck-up nobles. I would
Mm.
rather have you all be my samurai." And you
Mm.
saw it was a very emotional thing for them because
Yeah.
they've never, how would I word this?
Hmm.
No one saw the potential in them, and that's what
Yeah.
leadership is, right?
Yeah.
And I know like you've taken a bigger managerial role in terms of where you've worked. The idea of just like seeing
Hmm.
the potential in others, right?
Hmm.
Because too often we tend to, for understandable reasons, we tend to judge people and things on face value. But
Hmm. Hmm.
I would say a great leader is someone who can see the potential in others that they can't
Hmm.
even see in themselves, and
Yeah.
that they can rise it. Okay, I don't know if you have any kind of experience or thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think both in my position and also just working with folks or whatever. Like, again, I don't. What am I trying? What can I say? Like, I guess I've just worked with a number of young folks who have just been kind of like, like just fine doing their thing, but then like I've had enough opportunities to work with them, and because of the general population of the folks I'm working with, sometimes I have to get a little creative, right? Because like not everyone's going to want to sit down in a room and talk, which is fine. And it's tough for me because that's like what I've been doing for most of my working career. So I have to like, all right, how do I like work outside the box? And yeah, it's a bit of cliche, but I had one of the kids like kick my ass at basketball. I'm horrible at sports. Like I have like two left feet. It's all embarrassing. My poor father is so embarrassed of me. But like,
Don't worry, I got two right feet.
no,
It's a little bit better, but it's not great.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, but like it's just like at some point when this person was kicking my ass, like he started like I was like, can you show me how to do this? And he started teaching me, and he was really good at it. And I was just like, you are really good at this. Have you ever thought about like teaching people how to do this? Like, have you ever thought about teaching kids? And because I noticed he also um, had a gaggle of younger kids often calling out to him whenever we'd walk from like school to somewhere else to sit down and eat. And he's just like, I don't care about that. But eventually we encouraged him to join this leaders in training program, and he excelled at it and he flipping loves it. So it's just like, you know, just being able to see a couple things and just like put at least a bit of a seed into someone's head. And just like opening the door, right? At some point they do have to walk through it. And it's just like with these scabbards, right? Like Odin opened the door, but they're the ones that had to keep walking through it, and that was the important thing, and he gave them an opportunity that no one else would have. With Odin, it's not just loyalty, it's gratitude. Like it's those two things together with him, and it's that love for him that they're like, yeah, we absolutely want to do this. So they didn't like clean up their image just because people said you kids gotta pull up your pants and get your lives straight. Like no, there wasn't that. It was like we want to do this to help him because he showed us we can be more than we thought we could be. So I thought that was all very cool.
Yeah, you actually made me think of that quote that Ashura Doji said to him, after they, cleaned up, Kuri, the
Oh
land of
yeah.
Kuri. And he said, Ashura said to him, I have never known peace. Thank you, Odin. Of
That's
course,
awesome.
Odin being a dick, like kicked him in the face after.
Yeah,
Right.
well, actually, one of the things I really loved about Odin, like I think this face shows up pretty regularly now in One Piece, but I think Odin is the origin of the he didn't like that face, right? Where it's
Yep.
just like they're like, "We love you, we're gonna follow you forever." He's just like, like just kill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The face of annoyance. Ugh.
Yeah, like
He
I think,
looks annoyed.
yeah, like I think Luffy and Zoro did
Yeah.
that face. Yeah,
Yep. Yep. When, like,
yeah.
what's it called? What's his name? Lucio was like, how about this? We'll cut you a deal. We won't chase you guys if you set us free right now for us to beat the Seraphim. And
Yeah.
then Luffy and Zoro just like, these guys look so annoyed.
Yeah, they look so annoying face. That was I love that. That's one of my favorite gag faces now. That's a
Yeah, I
good
know.
one.
Just like Odin started and now it's been like a thing in One Piece. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
shout out to Oda for reinventing the humor wheel in One Piece.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh,
but no, you actually made a good point because I actually wanted to read what Yasui was saying to him because you remember when, as Odin was daimyo initially, they were running out of money.
yeah.
And so the nine red scabbards before they became the nine red scabbards, like, you know what? We'll rob Odin's uncle.
Yeah. Smart plan, guys. Good job.
We'll rob him and help Odin with his money. And it's just like, well, like, yes, it's definitely stupid. But on the other hand, you could see how like
Yeah,
you're just doing the best with the resources that they have. And you don't
and
even
that's what they know too. They're like, how do we get money? I know. We'll rob someone who has a lot of money. It's not he needs all of it. Like it's just
exactly.
like you
And
see the
like
thought process.
he won't take it personally. It's his uncle.
Yeah, yeah,
We're not robbing a stranger.
yeah.
But we're not
Exactly.
also
Yeah,
not going to tell Odin either, because Odin will tell us not to.
yeah,
Especially his uncle.
yeah. Oh man, good
Yeah,
stuff.
and so like, Yasui ended up speaking to him, and I'm gonna just read the whole thing. After he captures all of the nine red scabbards, as they're being like low lives and thugs. And he says, "Do you love Odin? Then take this money that they stole. Take this money and make yourselves presentable. Learn some manners. Buy some books and study."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes on to say, having a bunch of low-life retainers like you would only disgrace Odin. He is the man who will one day become the shogun of Wano, the country. Those who serve him ought to be the best samurai Wano has to offer. Of
Mm,
course, protecting your lord is a must, Odin.
mm.
The entire country of Wano will have you as its guardians. And you saw from that standpoint, they decided to reform themselves, if you will. I don't know if
Yeah,
reform. I would say refine. Reform
refine. Yeah,
is like a criminal undertone to it. They refined
yeah.
themselves, right? They started studying. They're even speaking more formal Japanese
Oh,
than Odin, which he
that
found
was so funny. It's
disgusting.
just like, what the hell are you guys talking about? He's just like, the
Why are you guys
fuck?
talking like this,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
right?
like I like what you said about refined too, because they never changed who they were. Like they were still very much themselves. Like they like their personalities were still the same. There were still a bunch of goofballs, but they also just were more refined. They were still goofballs, but they also like, knew how to do things. They had better manners. They like made themselves more presentable, but they were very much still the same people that Odin had met and supported. So I thought that was cool.
I really love how you said that because when went back to meet with his dad Sukiyaki after being excommunicated from him and and the Kozuki family slash clan, Sukiyaki said, "I see you refine yourself to be. I've seen you've become a refined man now." And
Mhm.
Odin said it was a very offhanded remark, and it was only from that YouTube video I shared with you and Aziz of the Odin analysis, where it's like Odin said, "I nothing about me changes; it's people's perceptions of me change." And I'd extrapolate that because oftentimes we tend to see like we have a how would I word this? We have a very negative very negative, narrow-minded perspective of masculine energy.
Mhm.
So what I mean by that is, we all know statistically, and like you just have to go outside to see it. Like not to say like you living in crime, but like majority of crime is committed by men.
Mhm.
Also, majority of crime is committed upon men as well. And that same energy to commit crime is the same energy that can be used to build like a go train station,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? It's energy and energy like the ability to create and destroy is just two sides of the same coin. It's all about where how that energy is being channeled. And I would say we're in the same field. I know you've worked with young people who are so both destructive and self-destructive to their community, and the moment they're given the appropriate outlets, that same energy that was previously so destructive is now doing so much good.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
can think of so many of the young men I've worked with who, yeah, they were. You could say, or people would label them as problematic, but once they were given the resources and the support, that same energy is now they're working. They have their own space. They're doing this and that. They're giving back to the community, and it's
Mhm.
all from that support. And so even with Odin, right, he was always trying to like help Wano.
Yeah.
He just caused problems, like causing like a mass, flood that wiped out the village and stuff and whatnot, right? But once he was given the appropriate space to do what he does best, which is help people,
Mhm.
he was able to reform
Mhm.
the people of Kuri, which was like a lawless criminal town that Sukiyaki couldn't even do anything about, nor
Yeah.
the other daimyos. And on top of that, he didn't just reform them; he was able to refine them, and it was exempt. It was an exemplary standpoint of the was like I said the nine red scabbards, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like now everyone wants to live in Kuri.
Mhm.
Kuri was like I think it was probably like this the second best place to live besides the main
Besides the
city of
flower
Wano,
capital.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's
Besides the flower
Sakura
cap.
Town.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, and that's it. I don't know if you wanted to kind of speak on that sort of that dynamic of
Yeah. What kind I mean, I'm trying to think of what I can say that you haven't really thoroughly just covered there, but I think that's absolutely true. Like, I think it's just like, where do you put that energy? I mean, so I think what happens if you're looking at a lot of folks, like if we look at it from our own community, like community standpoint, right? Like a lot of these young folks are putting their energy into a lot of different things, but in the bottom line, it's sometimes it's survival, and I don't even mean that necessarily on like just like well, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways. If they're younger, they're in middle school or high school. Sometimes they're, sometimes they're in like situations where they feel like they're just like not being like actually properly like seen for who they are. And so survival mode puts you in this mode like, well, I have to act a certain way or I'm expected to act a certain way. Sometimes survival mode is a lot of these young folks are actually working jobs to support their own families at home too because of whatever circumstance they're in. Sometimes survival mode is being stuck in a situation that you just that's all you know. So you don't. It's not that you don't know that things could be easier, but you're like, well, but all you've seen and all the examples you've seen are just that one area, right? And all these things kind of make me think of the way Curry was before, things changed there, right? And so you're looking at a small community with a lot of struggles, a lot of issues. Everyone's kind of stuck there. Everyone's trying to survive. People have to do things that they probably wouldn't normally do in order to survive. And I think you actually had a quote in here, so I'm going to steal your work here a little bit
Go
from
ahead.
you noticing something. But like Ashura Doji, like what he said is something I've heard, sentiments I've heard from people that I've worked with, where it's just like, I've never known peace. Thank you, Odin. Like, it's just like, I've never known peace because they've been in survival mode. In order for Ashura Doji to be able to be as comfortable as possible, he had to basically become a crime lord, right? Like that was the least violent option for him, if you kind of think about it,
It's
right?
true.
Which is really, really sad and really messed up. But like, and a lot of young folks are often in that survival mode when they're stuck in locations or situations where chaos is the base level. So if you're constantly in that, how can you even have a chance to explore what peace can look like? But then you get
You're always in
people,
danger.
and well, exactly, you're hyper vigilant. You're always having to look over your shoulder, and so when you're able to find people or find supportive communities that can support you in either getting out of that space or help you reform or refine areas of that space, like that's huge. So yeah, like basically yes to the things you said.
I would actually add to what you said when we look at, people like Ashra Doji, there's two aspects of it. One aspect of it is we tend to see people like that, young people like that. I would even say males,
Hmm.
in a sense of they're just pathologically criminalistic just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Just you just want to commit crimes because that's your genetic makeup.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's a lot more nuanced and complicated than that more
Yeah.
often than not. There are some people who just, they're just like Joker. Or Doflamingo. I'm just here. I just want to see the world burn. I don't want to help people.
Yeah.
I just want to cause problems. I don't believe in peace.
Yeah.
Milton Tayshawn from Boondocks.
Yeah.
I like to do bad things and smoke cigarettes with my friends.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a deep cut. I wasn't expecting. I like that.
Yeah, hey man, he's a template. Whenever I see a character that's like Dolphin, I was like, oh, this is a little Milton Tayshawn character. I like to do
Yeah.
bad things and smoke with cigarettes. It's like,
Yeah. 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 No, that's actually spot
I do
on.
good bad things with my friends. Like, damn, you're just about it. It's like, yeah, some people are like that,
Some people are like that. There are folks like that.
right? And I think I would say majority of people are more like Ashra Doji,
Hmm.
who want peace and they don't know how to go about it because they've never been shown an alternative path. And
Yeah.
once you've given that, it's not so much about, because I was even watching I forgot I don't remember the guy's YouTube channel, but he was showing what's going on in New York right now, where there's no like essentially penal system for I guess you could say minors or
Hmm.
juveniles who are committing crimes.
Yeah.
And now like it's become like a hellhole in terms of the New York subway station. I do agree there needs to be like a penal system, like like Odin knocked the shit out of Odin. Sorry, Odin knocked the shit out of Ashura, right?
Mm.
And then but that was the first step. But also
Hmm.
going back again on repurposing and retooling that energy
Yeah.
towards
Yeah.
something good for them, rather
Yeah.
than either just penalizing them or not penalizing them at all. That
Yeah.
neither of which is really a solution. Is to it, everyone needs consequences to their actions, but on the other hand, there needs to be once again a repurposing of that energy, so they
Yeah.
can see like, oh,
Absolutely.
this is my space. Like even when I was running the youth space, um, in Dorset Park area, I had the youth like organize the rooms.
Yeah.
I stopped
Yeah.
doing it. Like I was just like, here's a PlayStation, here's a PS3, here's a PS4, plug it
Hmm.
in. I would be near in case someone, because there's always new kids. You don't know if that new kid's gonna steal like, I don't know, like NBA 2K or something like that. But like
Hmm.
I would always be around. They would just get what they needed
Yeah.
and have
Yeah.
to do it. And like that space became a lot more manageable because I made sure it was their space. And
Yeah.
also on the other hand, is it's like, why am I overworking myself? That's the thing that I've always seen with community workers, is that like we love to like overwork ourselves. We're gonna like carry the couches and set the room up. And it's like,
Hmm.
bro, he's 16. He has nothing to do. Let him
Yeah.
lift the
Let him
couch.
let him do it. Yeah. Last year we had as like a year-end thing for the middle school I sometimes help out at. Like we had a rooftop event where we had a bunch of games and stuff and competitions here and there. And it was a rooftop on the community center, but like it just kind of blows my mind because the community center rooftop, and again, if I had more time and more ability to do more things, like I'd have work more towards this, but like it's a nice, like it's a green space, but it just is barely used. And it was like I went up there and it was just like it was so full of overgrowth and just absolutely like hideous. And I'm just like, that's really disappointing because it's a beautiful space. And I'm just like, and so myself and my other colleague were like, what do we do, like what should clean up? And we're like, wait, let's get the kids to do it. So like literally like a couple days before the event we went to the middle school, and it was even after school too. So these kids could have just gone home, but we kind of rounded them up. They're like, all right, like they're like, we kind of got them, but they're like, oh, what's this? They're like, you're cleaning it up. They're like, wait, what? So we kind of just, and they went to the event the next day, and like a lot of them showed up, like a lot more than we expected. But it's because they had that involvement. They felt like they felt involved and they were responsible, right? Like like it supports them in just like feeling involved rather than just a bunch of old people telling them what to do. Like, hey, you're involved. Also, this is part of you setting this stuff up. Like you're not only involved, but you're also kind of responsible here too.
It makes me think of, and I always preface this, I don't like them. I don't really agree with anything. I agree with some of their quotes, but I don't like anything that they say or do. One of Fresh from Fresh and Fit ended up using.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I always have to prefix. I do not like them, but they
Mm-hmm.
have some memorable quotes. Not everything. It's very rare that no one brings nothing of value to this world.
I hear what you're saying.
It was people value things they have to work hard for,
Mm-hmm.
and we
Yeah.
tend to forget that, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we want something so bad, it's like no, like and going back what you said, it kind of ties to Curry. Like Curry never went back into a lawless town, even when Orochi was ruling it, right? All those 20 years, Curry was still a good city to live in. There was oppression, right? But it never went back to being lawless again.
Yeah.
Right. Even when Ashura went back to being like a bandit, he never like defiled Curry because they had to work hard to build Curry from being a lawless town and city to what it is now. And going back on that youth space that you were talking about, and even my own youth space that I was managing, it never went back to, well, while I was there at least, it never went back to being bad because they had to maintain it. It was their space. It wasn't me maintaining it by myself and going back what you said, telling everybody what to do. It's like, no, like if you break the TV, this is your TV. You guys are the ones in charge of it. Right.
Yeah.
And that it goes down to that, right? As opposed to just, trying to convince people that they should do a certain thing or act a certain way. No, like people are people, and people, if they have to take care of something, they're gonna treat it with a lot more respect, as opposed to it's just I guess you could say given to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's where it is too, because like there's always that like back and forth between like, well, you're just gonna hand someone something versus like I'm gonna have to work for it, right? And I think the context of that is very important, right? Like if you look at it, even the way Odin does it, like he just gave these folks food. And it was like again, like the little joke I love it. He's just like he gives them food, and then they just keep always like, leave me alone, get away from me. But like he will give people that kindness because like these folks are starving, so yes, I'm going to give them food. And then in other situations, it's like, no, you can fix this, so fucking fix it, dude. Like like it's just like because I think a lot of people have like a lot of times people have like this hard line towards like one or the other, but context really does matter. So there are times where it's like, yeah, there are times where I am just going to give someone something because I'm like, yeah, this just makes sense and this is like okay to do. Other times I'm like, hey, that thing you're asking for, why don't we figure out how you can figure out how to get that, right? Like it both have meaning, and both can be helpful.
You got me thinking. Ashura and Odin's clash. I don't know if you remember their conversation, because Ashura is basically Ashura and Odin's fight was basically like Odin was like, "Yo, this place is a shithole," right? Which it was.
Yeah, it was.
And then Ashura was like, "Of course, coming from a silver spoon nepo baby, of course you'd say that." And Odin's like, "That's all you got to say? That's it? It's still a shithole, right?" So even like Odin can acknowledge that, like, yeah, he was born with a silver spoon. He's a nepo baby. He's a son of the shogun. He's not even a son of a daimyo. He's a son of a shogun. He's had the most easy upbringing, but he's still like, no, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Your place sucks.
Yeah.
It's trash.
Yeah. He's like, you're right, I am, and it still fucking sucks, dude. What are you saying? Like, yeah.
Right. And you know that triggered Ashura. He was like, how dare you? It's just like, no, but Odin had a point. But Odin didn't just stop there. Because too often, you know, we have people who want to pose as leaders and they just want to point the finger. I would say this is especially thing within, it's Caribbean, but it's definitely African. We know there's the whole finger pointing, but you know, the saying is you're pointing one finger at me, but three are pointing back at you.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
It's the idea. And even though I was having a conversation with my friend again, and you know, she was saying how like it's difficult to talk with people who just hate on things. I was telling her I was on Twitter the other day, and someone said, I don't know how much comics. Did you read Secret Invasion?
Oh, that was
Marvel?
Yeah.
I mean, did you?
Yes, I actually did read a bunch of different parts of Secret Invasion back in the day. Yes.
Okay, yeah. It's fire, right? I think it got like awards. I don't remember.
It was like, really good. It was really good. And the Fallout was good too. God damn. Anyway, that's long.
Okay, so I was on Twitter and someone said Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes was the only good was actually made Secret Invasion good. And I was just like, what?
Did they only watch the show? Like, what? That's a like,
no. Like, they're saying only Earth's Mightiest Heroes made Secret Invasion good. Like Secret Invasion by itself, the comic book itself, the crossover sucks.
That's wild. Like Earth's Mightiest Heroes did a good, very brief, very like it was Earth's Mightiest Heroes was great. So I have no complaints. But made the comic good is wild. That's a wild statement.
So I asked him. I was like, so I jokingly was just like, Secret Invasion good?
Yeah.
And then he responded with the MCU. Everything in the MCU sucks. Secret Invasion sucks. And he said like Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes the only thing that's good or something like that. And I just completely disengaged from him.
Yeah, like there's
if
no
you're
point
gonna
having
every from Iron Man 1 2008 to 2025, all of it is shit. Secret Invasion, which is critically acclaimed, I'm like, okay, I already know your headspace. There's a term that Nas used. I don't know if you're a music head or not. Nas used the term "trapped in the '90s niggas."
I've heard that term.
You know exactly what I mean.
Yeah, I know exactly what that means. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, the last good song came out in 1999. Everything else, I can't engage with someone. Like if everything to you sucks, everything is shit, nothing is okay.
Yeah.
At least, sorry, you're about to say?
No, sorry. I was just saying, like, this is not the same thing, but it was just funny because just on Twitter, I saw that there were people. Someone was just like, Sanji isn't kind, only cares about women, and someone was like, pointed all the very many examples, both subtle and very bold, of him being kind to like men, and then they just like listed how all those were wrong and untrue. I'm like, why are you guys still talking to this guy? Like, clearly this person's really stupid.
There's nothing
like, it's one of those things. Like, there's nothing you can do. That person's determined to just stand on ignorance. So, like, I'm like, okay.
I wish people did that more, because I remember even like just on a side point, I was like, I was running a program called Midnight Basketball, and like there was different youth teams from different underserviced communities. So I
know about that program.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So we're on the bus, and this lady, I can't remember how the conversation started, but this lady was just saying how she's not African, she's Jamaican. And, you know, she was like going off about it. It wasn't the youth, it was a lady. She was one of the ones in charge of the youth of her team.
Interesting.
And I'm not the type to get involved with public debates unless I'm asked to. Kind of like in our group chat, you know, like I don't really jump in unless someone wants me to jump in. I tend to just watch. And she was just going off, and then you know, my youth are looking at me because, like, you know, Eb, he's smart, you know, he's smart, articulate, whatever. And then they dragged me into the conversation. I was like, I'm not, if you're already like wilding and yelling and hollering, I'm not gonna get involved in the conversation with you. So they wanted me to get involved. They dragged me into it. I remember who dragged me into it now too. And I said, well, I'd even go from like an African standpoint. I said like human beings are originated from the continent of Africa. She just went off, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I just stopped. And then unfortunately, like a couple weeks later, she ended up like going off on like one of the 13-year-old kids, like wanting to fight him. Yeah. And so it was a good learning lesson for my young guys, where I really explained to them, like, you guys are probably wondering why I wasn't engaging with her and why I stopped responding after she started screaming at me too.
Mm-hmm.
Certain people they're not entering a conversation to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
They're here to win.
Yeah.
whatever brownie points they win, right? Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
get higher tier in heaven. I don't know. Whatever it is, you
Yeah.
get a higher tier. Like God's like, I saw what you did there.
Yeah. Good job. You get that chair higher up in the bleachers. Congratulations.
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah.
A1 Christian.
Yeah. Showing this.
Well, yeah. Some people aren't trying to have that conversation. They've
Mm-hmm.
entered the conversation with their mind made up, and there's nothing you can really say to them. But often as you want to prove that person wrong, same reason that you've seen like young women go on Fresh and Fit. They're trying to prove, like, they're not trying to hear what you have to say, and they don't care. And I think maybe that's a hurt to the ego.
It certainly can be, and I get where that comes from, especially when someone's saying something that's so off base. You're just like, but there's so many, like, it's just like I can feel that in my brain sometimes. I'm like, everything you're saying is so off base. And like, I'm not even sitting here being like, oh, I know everything and I'm completely right about my opinions. I'm like, no, like the things that you're saying are just objectively untrue because of such proven things as this, and this. But I'm just like I remember learning this so long ago when I was younger, because it was actually like a friend's younger brother who was just like a very
Staunch.
just staunch and mean, like just a mean person, like just a really mean, like I don't know how else to describe this person. He was just mean, right? And so I remember at one point he was saying some messed up stuff about like just basically poor people, and I was just like, okay. He was like, what? I really want to know, Nettie. You know about these people. I want to know.
When they drag you into the convo. Sorry, go on.
Exactly. No, you're exactly right. He's just trying to drag me in because he knows that, because I used to get into like these arguments with him because I'm just like, he's saying such deplorable things and spreading it around, and it just makes me so ill. I just gave him the most dismissive look I could muster, and I was just like, "Ah, you're full of shit." I'm like, you just want like no matter what I say, you're just going to believe what you're saying. You're not actually hearing for a conversation. You're just here to get people mad and just to be really mean, and I don't have any time for that. And he never approached me with that stuff again. Like just doesn't mean he didn't stop saying, but I'm like, he knew not to talk to me about it because I'm like, I'm done with you because like you're just saying things that are hurtful, and just and so like you said, right, like sometimes you have to be like, okay, like that's where you are. You're not actually here to have a conversation. Cool, I'm stepping away. So
yep, I've dealt that in work too. Just like where someone has like their mind made up about me, and I'll touch on it in a second. But the idea of like what it means to lead is that not everyone's gonna like what you have to say, and they've already made their mind up. They already made their mind up about you, and there's nothing you can do. Like that was a great thing about Oden, is the fact that he was able to point out what was wrong with Curry, but then stepped up, and reformed Curry to the point where it became a sought after city where everyone wanted to live in, and Oden was heavily praised. Right, that's what it means to be leaders, to be able to point something out. Right, you're not just saying Secret Invasion sucks from Marvel. You're able to break down why, and maybe you come up, maybe you become a writer. Now you've written a better version of it, right? That's what those things mean. Sorry, you're about to say?
Oh no, that's okay. Like that's exactly it too, because it's even like, and that's one of the things that always like kind of bothers me, and like it's just one of those things where, well, this thing's bad or this thing sucks, and it's just like, and sometimes yeah, sure, maybe, but it's like, okay, when you're able to break down, but also praising the parts that are actually good or interesting, because if someone's saying like Secret Invasion sucks, they might like, maybe they're like, okay, I actually like, okay, you know what, Secret Invasion, I actually, for me, I don't know if I should say this out loud. For me, like I think solo leveling is okay. I don't think it's bad.
I don't think it's great. I know we're both criminals for what we're saying. I also avoid saying anything about Dragon Ball.
Yeah, so, no, absolutely. And it's funny because like I actually had this conversation with a couple of folks in our group, and two big fans of it in our group, and like we had a conversation about, because I wasn't just like solo leveling sucks, blah blah, overrated, blah blah, nothing but hype, blah blah. Like no, I'm like, here are the things that I don't like about it. Here are the things that I actually do really like about it, right? And so, and you can actually have a conversation. And I also heard what they liked about it. Where I'm like, oh, hey, cool. I didn't actually realize that aspect of it, or I didn't realize that meant to you. Like, it's the same thing where I have conversation with I have a good friend of mine who I grew up with, who he just hates me on Genesis Evangelion. He won't, like, he'll just be mean about it. So I'm like, shut up. I don't ever want to talk to you about this again. But he did. He also did the same thing with Star Wars. At one point, I got really annoyed. I'm like, look, Star Wars isn't like peak
So he
fiction
did not
already.
like Star Wars, I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
he hates Star Wars. Yeah, he absolutely
The
hates it.
current
Like
ones or like all of it?
all of it. He's just never liked it.
How do
Which
you
again,
Space Samurais? How do you not like Space Samurais?
people have their own camps. He's got his own reasons, and his reasons are actually
That's
legitimate.
crazy.
Well, when I
Okay,
actually
go
had
on.
a conversation with him, it was actually interesting, and like it broke down, especially why Luke Skywalker really spoke to me as a kid. Because the part I actually don't hear about is like dog fails a lot, like a lot. You
Who feels
know?
all that?
Luke Skywalker
Yes.
fails. He fails a lot, but
Yeah.
like he never stops trying, right? Like that's the thing. Like even when he's losing, he's still getting back up. Like and so that spoke a lot to me as a young person. And so it was just like, oh, okay. Like we're able to actually have a conversation. So like you pointing out that Odin's like actually able to like, hey, Curry flipping sucks for this reason, and this reason. But he also saw the potential and he stepped up, right? Like it's not just this, politician saying like, "Oh, this area of the city is a crap hole. We need to put more cops there." He was just like, "This area of the city really sucks because of all this stuff going around. We need to fix that because I see so much good here." Like it's that switch up that I think meant something, and that only a person like that is someone that Ashura Doji could have given his life for.
Exactly, which ended up technically being the case, right? For those who somehow didn't watch Wano by now.
Yeah.
No, but that's exactly it. It's the idea of being a man of the people. Like going back on kind of Thomas Sankara, one of the things that stood out to me about him, and even Nelson Mandela too. Actually, a lot of big leaders, prominent leaders in history, especially for the diaspora, is that like you'll see them in the community.
Yes,
Like
that's true.
I was hearing how I was watching how like I have to read about it more, but one of the things that Thomas Sankara did is that like community events, he'll just randomly show up in like a t-shirt and sweatpants.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even make a public announcement. You'll just turn the corner and
Yeah.
he's just there, right? And
Yeah.
that's what it means. Going back on what it means to be a man of people, you just show up, right? You're not trying to make a big deal of yourself, right? And that's how Odin was. Odin was always with the people. He didn't even like being in the tower.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
would it be a tower? Castle. He didn't like even being in the castle.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was only there when he was with, the family, but otherwise he was just like, I'm just gonna walk the streets. I'm gonna hang out with everybody. I'm gonna see how they're doing. And what's her name? Lady Toki was maintained that same family legacy and mindset, right? But that's one of the things I loved about Odin is the fact that like he acknowledged, he's like, yeah, I'm a Nepo baby. I was born with a silver spoon, but I can acknowledge what's wrong here. And that's what really set him apart. And that's what set Curry in the right direction. And even then, like going back on what Sukiyaki, his dad said, like, you became refined. It's like, no, I was always me.
Yeah.
And I can speak on this personally. Is just the idea of just like being seen as problematic. Like Odin had no issue. And this is what allowed Odin to be what he was to Curry. Because if he really cared about what people thought, he would have never gone to Curry. But he was always okay with being I think the word would be pariah, or being a sort of martyr for everybody, which was somewhat of his undoing, but it's also what helped him become who he was. It's okay to be against the grain. Too often with like, we've kind of talked, I can't remember who we talked about this with. Our last episodes were Katakuri and Sanji. I forgot who. Anyways, it's one of the episodes. Point being is that, as a young man, it's important to be okay with not everybody liking you. And overall, just as a human being, it's okay with not everybody liking you. And one of the things I've actually talked about with the conversation I've had with my young men about, because they worry about like being a mansplaining person or whatever, is the fact that the most liberating thing in life is to not be liked by everybody. At least you know who doesn't like you. And you know the people that do. But if you're trying to, then you're never in a space of ease and comfortability. If you're always just like, but if I say this, will they like me? If I say this, will they have issue? People, just like how we're talking about the whole Secret Invasion or the Sanji stuff. And by the way, I want to say one of my favorite scene of Sanji is not any of his fights. It's actually when he saved those Marines during Punk Hazard.
Yeah, I love that. When he just kept behind them, kept kicking them in the butts, literally just to make sure they didn't fall behind. That's something that's like, I agree. Like that's something that's never really talked about when it comes to Sanji flashbacks, like, or just Sanji's like acts that he does. But because he just does that stuff. He doesn't do it to get noticed. He doesn't. He like people like, oh, Tashigi, like he would have done that if Tashigi, you guys aren't watching. He wouldn't have done that if Tashigi was around or not. Like he also saved Kinemon, and was just
Yeah.
like he because all of his crew members were like, dog, that's really fishy. He's just like, I'll take full responsibility for him. I will. Like I can't just leave this person. Like it's just that's just who he is.
It's one of the best things about, like I said, like it's like yeah, like if Jam was really cool, some hella Sakuga, versus
Oh,
versus
oh,
Queen.
oh yeah.
But no, that
Mm-hmm.
still stands out of my favorite, especially since I thought about like, and this is probably why Sanji's not a supernova, is because I'm like, I can't see Luffy and Zoro going out of the way to save everybody, save those Marines like that.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't.
I can't see them. They would like trap them inside. That's some dumb flamingo shit. Yeah. I can't see them being like, I'm gonna make sure these guys who are eventually gonna try and capture us and arrest us to be saved.
Well, exactly, and there's nothing, and like it's we're talking about Katakuri the other week, right? Like Luffy just stood by while Katakuri murdered his cooks right in front of him. Luffy did not give a shit. Like, and that's not saying Luffy's bad. Like that's just the way Luffy is. Like he just did not give a fuck at all. Yeah. Sanji would have gotten mad. Like if it was Sanji there, he would be like, they did nothing to you, and also they're making food for you. Like they. Like he would have been really upset. They're just different types of characters in that sense.
Yeah, the chefs. You're talking about the chefs. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sanji's always looking out for people who no one's looking out for.
Exactly. And so yeah, that's what it means to really lead, is the fact that to be comfortable with who you are, and to if you care about crew, if you care about Marines, whatever it is, to really stand up for those people, even if not everyone's in agreement of it, and to take, as you said, full responsibility of your actions, right? That's what it means. Like I've been labeled, like the amount of times I've been labeled as one of the things I've got, which is funny because like I do so much girls with like especially racialized young girls and women, is like sexist. I've gotten that one. We've talked about it. I've gotten that so many times at work for various reasons, but then at the same time they're like, oh man, like I remember, I can give one perfect example of what it means to just go against the grain. So I remember one of the young men I was working with, we can talk a little bit more about after the episode, and he was in a situationship with one of the young women at the agency, and I was particularly close with him, and they wanted me to tell him to enter a relationship with that young woman, or to not be in a situationship with her because it's just hurting her, quote unquote. And I said no. Of course I was seen as being difficult, but I'm like, okay, let's say I tell him to stop seeing, and also it would put my relationship with him in jeopardy because now he doesn't feel safe with me. We don't really think about that because he's a tall black man, right? It means he's not going to be safe with me because it means that whatever he does or whatever he confines me to is dependent on my other female colleagues and how they feel about him, right? So that's one standpoint. So it wouldn't be a healthy relationship for the two of us. And then the second point I brought up is, if it's not him who's in a situationship with her, it'll be just another young man. So what are we doing to empower her to value herself so she doesn't get into situationships? And everyone's just like, actually, you make a good point. It would just be someone else. I'm like, why is she in a situationship? She has agency. It's not like she's this powerful, helpless agent. She has agency. She's very intelligent. She can make her own choices. So why is she making this choice? There's clearly a sense of lack of self-love and self-worth that we need to address with her. And then she would never be in these situations, pun intended. Right? Intentionally. Right? And I see the same way, like even with some of my young men, they've been taken advantage of by girls and women. I'm like, yeah, like there's always going to be bad people. I've said this before. There's always going, no matter what. The thing we can guarantee is taxes and what's the other one? It's like taxes, death, and I guess bad people. There was going to exist. So how are we? Sorry,
I said true. Sorry, I just said true. Yeah.
So how are we preparing the good people to know how to navigate challenging situations with bad people?
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean that's exactly it. Like it's just
and not to say he's a bad person. I want to put that too. Yeah.
No, fair point. No, that's good to point out. But it's like you said, what's like again, curiosity I think is one of the most valuable things that people like us in our field can have, right? And so again, like curiosity, like what's happening for her that she's in a situationship. Like maybe we need to explore that first, as opposed to being like, let's tell him to stop. Okay, but also let's like maybe let's have a moment and explore with her what's going on, right? Like let's have some curiosity there. Like if we're even talking about that, like some of the young folks I work with, like I think I've talked about this on here before, but identifying like positive and like positive friendships. And again, I'm sure we'll get into this more,
Exactly.
but
But yeah,
people that you can trust, right? And people that you could that fit in your circle. And we literally used crew, like the idea of having crew members from One Piece is people you can identify. Like, okay, is this person crew? And it's like, well, this person's like an ally, like a Vivi or a Carrot. Okay, well, this person's straight up crew. Like, how about this person? Like, oh, they're not crew at all, right? Like, you'd be able to like kind of utilize that idea of supporting yourself by identifying. And this person who had some pretty toxic friends for the past few years has finally moved away from them because felt like crap every time it was with them, but they're only people he knew, right? So like now he's got some people that he could actually talk to. It's interesting. I think as far as like my what's it called, involvement with folks and stuff, like I can say like I haven't really been had moments where I've been like outwardly going against the grain, not out of fear of being noticed. I just think I work best a lot oftentimes when people don't know what I'm
I wish people always asking me what I think about things, so I have to, and
doing.
or like I said before, the conversation with that crazy lady is that
Mhm.
like I'm
Yeah,
dragged
people.
into it, where it's like, you know what,
Yeah,
let's get Ebb into this. I'm like, or not.
yeah,
Maybe,
or yeah.
maybe
No,
I
I
don't want
think
to be here. Maybe there's a
yeah,
reason I'm quiet. You think about
yeah,
that? Maybe there's a
yeah.
reason I'm not saying anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
Putting
maybe
it out
there's a reason I'm just taking a step back. No, I think it's like I think what I've often done too is like because I don't know what it is. Like I've never been like the flashiest person or whatever, but it's just like again like it's pretty common too where I've been yelled at parents for certain things, especially when they're like worried about their kids or whatever. They'll call me, somehow get my number, start yelling at me about their kid situation. Of course, I
Sorry
can't
for
say
that.
anything. No, it's it happens a lot, and hilariously, I'm quite good with parents, but like they're yelling at me, but then they're like, my kid finally did this, this, and this. And I'm just like, yeah, because we've been talking about it for a couple weeks. Like in my head, I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, but I like, like, I don't need that praise of, oh, that was all me. I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was because this kid was able to open up and work with me and we were able to kind of take those steps. And then, or they'll be like, oh, this happened and this happened. And I'm just like, yeah, that was like, that was me. But I'd rather just not like, I'm okay with that not being known. Like I just rather kind of be in the background.
For sure.
Um, and it's just like because and again, like I'm not just saying like oh I'm so noble, but it's just like I'm thinking about like Odin. It's just like sometimes you're able to get things done when people aren't keeping that eye on you or when they have some sort of
Keeping
perception
tabs.
of you. I'm like
Mhm.
I literally don't care what you think. What I care about is supporting these folks and and so if like like again I think actually it's kind of weird now because there's a few more eyes on me than I'm used to. Um, but and again, like I don't know, it's like some things I'm getting noticed for, other things are it's more like the case like, oh, why isn't this and this and this done? It's like, well, because I've been supporting other people and doing it rather than just doing it myself. I'm really supporting these folks into like figuring out how to get to do it themselves. And that means that they stumble and fail and kind of embarrass themselves a little bit, but now they know how to do it. And now they're like,
Exactly.
oh, next time I need to do this, this, and this instead, rather than me just setting it up and sending emails and organizing everything. I'm like, no, no,
Then
you're
no one is
adults.
learning.
Exactly. Exactly. And that just ended last week with something that ended up working out after I basically had to pull teeth for someone to do something. But they finally flip and did it and they felt good about it. And I'm just like, my work here is done unless I walk away. Like good.
And I just want to speak on that point. Like you say it like as a joke, but yeah, no, literally your work here is done because now you don't have to handhold them. We always have
Hmm.
this thing of this like, and this goes back into like, having the youth clean up the space and stuff. We don't trust them. So we have to
Yeah.
micromanage. And it's just like, okay. And then you wonder why they don't feel safe in these spaces or why they don't value these spaces. Is because
Exactly.
they're not given, I know, pun intended, that the power
Hmm. Hmm.
to for over these spaces, the
Yeah.
responsibility over these spaces, right? We
Absolutely.
just want to
Absolutely.
control them and then expect them to value it somehow when it's like
Yeah.
that's not human nature.
Yeah, well, exactly, and it just makes no sense. You don't think about the long term, like, and I know, and like again, I'm not obviously like I know, I've worked with people who are just like, oh, I have to do this, this, and I'm so busy, and like, that sounds like me sometimes, absolutely, but it's just like I'm like, hey, do you need some help on that? Like, no, 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 I'm okay. I'm like, no, you do, but now you're in this level, in this cycle of like, oh, this thing would fall apart without me, but oh my god, it's so much. I'm like, well then how? And again, like, or they're like, oh, this person can't do this on their own, they're too afraid. I'm like, that's a problem. We need to support that person not being afraid to do that on their own, right? Like that's the way I kind of try to work with folks, and it's harder and takes more time. And believe you me, it's exhausting, but it's just like the idea is that you can walk away and be like, my work here is done. Like now that person knows how to do that, and they probably feel better about it too. Like that's pretty huge.
Exactly. No, one of the things I've been thinking about in terms of legacy, going back on Curry, Wano, and even like Odin's story is like
Hmm.
legacy is when people can carry on what you were doing even when you're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people feel like legacy. People, I don't think people understand what legacy is. A lot of people feel like it needs to exist with me. Now, like, no, when it can exist without you, that's
Hmm.
when you've done it.
Yeah.
Right. There's
Absolutely.
a story. This was happening, I think, around COVID times.
Hmm.
It was a Russian guy who was killed in his house. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said. He was deleted in his house. Too
Hmm.
late now.
Yeah.
But he was involved with, I don't know what he was involved with in terms of crime, but his company was like, he was like a millionaire or billionaire or something like that. He was killed in his house, and after he died, his company like collapsed. It had to do
Mm.
with, it was tied with like labeling and stuff that like my
Ah.
wife kind of worked in that industry, and she told me, but like, yeah, like company fell once he was gone, right?
Mm.
So
I see.
like as far as I'm concerned, like no one like in like 30 years from now, no one's gonna remember you because your company's gone, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not
You know,
saying that like that's a good or bad thing, but it just says something like even you
right.
could have built this thing, but because you never created succession,
Yeah.
it's forgotten.
That's so true. That actually reminds me. This is a little. Sorry for going a little too far off here, but like, I don't know if you've ever seen or watched the show The Bear. Um,
I've seen the name and I thought the name was stupid, but go on.
well, the long story short, the show is about this guy who's trying to own, like, create a restaurant. That's a very um, brief kind of summary of the show. I have a lot of good and bad things I feel about the show, but
Right.
I always think it's interesting, and
Okay.
that's says a lot for me, right?
Right.
So there's one episode in season two, and I'm not gonna get huge spoilers about it, but it's basically like finally the launch of their big restaurant launch, and the kind of kicker, and there's light spoilers here, so if you want to skip ahead a few, 30 seconds or so, but like light spoilers is that like he ends up getting locked in the freezer for the whole opening. And like the funny thing is that people kept mentioning fix the freezer, do the freezer like over the whole season. And he keeps just not doing it or forgetting to do it, or it doesn't seem as important. But he ended up getting locked in the freezer and the door's stuck, so they can't really get him out. And he's freaking out, like he's losing his shit. He's just like, and basically it's funny because that whole season was a build up to him and the whole place working out, like all working out, but like made that one mistake. And so he is kicking the ever loving crap out of himself through that. And that part was a little relatable because like you make one mistake and all of a sudden you're like, I'm a complete and utter failure. I'm scum. I should be erased from the earth. Like it's such a bad feeling. And
I
that's
should have
like,
been born as a sea cucumber.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry for ever being born. Still one of my favorite quotes, especially like when Zoro said that and Sanji made fun of him about it later.
Yep.
Just love that. But like the irony of the thing is that the everything ran perfectly smoothly,
Wow.
right? Like he, as the leader of that place, set them all up to succeed, and they did fantastically. The only thing went wrong was him being stuck there. But the fact that they were able to do everything even without him, because they're like, oh crap, he's stuck. What do we do? Okay, well we know our roles is this. Like that's the irony of the thing. Because when he came out and all the season, he was being even more of a bit of an issue. Where you're just like, dude, you don't understand. You did well. You were a good leader because even without you, everything worked out. Everyone knew exactly what to do. You set and the person who needed to be second in charge stepped up immediately, right? Like it was
Right.
that was really interesting to me, especially the fact that he missed that. And this is kind of what you're talking about, having that plan of succession, that legacy that even if you're not there, it still works out well, and people who learn from you are still able to keep doing what they're doing. And yeah.
No, that's exactly it. It made me think of like so there's the point after Odin's passing, but even before then, when he was still on the Oral Gold with with Roger, with the Roger
Mm,
Pirates, then
yeah.
Itoki went back to Wano.
Hmm.
And everyone was speaking because like everyone's like, oh wow, Odin was like, oh wow, no one hates me despite me being gone for how many years was he gone?
Oh my god, I don't know.
Right?
Like several though. Like because his kids were like 8, I think, or no,
Yeah,
Momodoshu
8.
was 7 or 8 or something like that. So it's
Yeah,
been, it was like over 7 years.
almost a decade. I think almost a decade he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Odin's like, oh, no one's mad at me. No, everyone's cool. And then you had the 9 Scabbards talk about what Lady Toki was doing, and there's an additional point I'm going to say that, but I'm going to read what everyone was saying about her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank your wife, Lady Toki. She's a very wonderful person. When she recovered from her illness,
Mm-hmm.
she came down into town and helped the citizens every day. She has never acted arrogantly as a daimyo's wife, which
Mm-hmm.
would have been like a prominent leader, just to give people perspective.
Mm-hmm.
She labored with everybody cheerfully and shared stories of your adventure. Lady Toki and your children are extremely popular in Curry now. They had
Mm-hmm.
nothing but praise for you. At some point, everyone stopped speaking ill of your selfish behavior. Right.
Yeah.
And so even in terms of leading is having, especially like from the male standpoint, is having the right wife with you, a woman of the people, right? As much as you need to be a man of the people, having the wrong person romantically, and we're going to expand on that, when we get on Torochi, but having the right, partner, the right wife, that's a big role, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, one of the conversations I have with my young men is like really like screening, right? Because oftentimes, especially as you're younger, there's a term that Abba from Abba and Preach uses, young, dumb, and full of cum.
Oh geez, yeah.
I keep it a stack here. And when you're young, when we were young, you just see a pretty face and a curvaceous body, you're just blind, and it's like, I hear you, like, I hear you guys. Curves matter. Curves, all curves matter. But hear me out. Is she a nice person? Hear me out. Does she support what you're trying to do? Hear me out. Is she with the plan and the vision you have in mind? Right? Like, really think about those things as opposed to just what she looks like. What is she bringing to you, and how is she going to support you in what you're trying to do? Is she trying to help you achieve it? And also, on the other hand, for some of the young women I've worked with, I remember one of them, she did. I'm being dead ass with you, Nedu. Like, I'm not being hyperbole. Like, she dated a drug dealer, and she was like, yeah, but I thought he'd go back to school. It's like, and then she tried to use the example of Deb. It's like, but Deb helped you get hired. I'm like, I was already looking to get a higher paying job, and then Deb supported me with the interview process. She wasn't sending me places to apply to. I was already applying. And I feel like so on one hand, I feel like for young men, they don't screen properly. And for young women, they're screening for the wrong things in a different way. Right. And it's just like, first of all, he's a drug dealer. Let's call so first of all, you're dating someone the antithesis of who I am. He's literally the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. let's call he's the antithesis of me. But also, like, in terms of, let's look at it from like a positive and negative reinforcement standpoint, right? Even one of them, she was with like and I'm going to be very clear and I use this term, a hobosexual. I'm not saying homo. No, hobo, as in like, he's not doing anything. He's a bum. And the only thing like he's in a relationship you're using him for is for sexual purposes. He's not really doing anything. He's not contributing anything to the relationship. And not to say like, quote unquote, providing and paying bills. No, he literally doesn't do anything. All he does is sit on the couch. So if you're with a guy like that, whether he's doing harm or nothing in the community, being with him is a positive reinforcement for that. You're already rewarding him with being with you, right? Like women don't just get with anybody. So if you're with him and he's not doing anything, why would he change?
Yeah,
right. It's similar to like your girlfriend is like is abusive to some way, shape, or form, and then you propose to her. Why would she change? You're rewarding those actions, right?
Yeah.
Like if you like humans, like if you reward someone for like whatever they're doing, whether they're good or bad, they're going to keep doing it. Why would they change after? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you're why he's a drug dealer and you're with him. Yeah, he's going to keep doing it because you reward him for those actions. So he's going to keep doing those things. Like if he wanted to get with you and you told him, hey, you need to reform, kind of what we spoke about, refine yourself.
Yeah.
And he does it. That's a wholly different conversation. But like, he doesn't have to, and he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
You can't make someone do something they don't want to do. Like he's committed to that lifestyle.
I'm reminded slightly of even the granted the situation this guy wanted to change a little bit, but we're talking about like the morning side with
Right.
the couple where he literally got caught in the act
Yes.
and she didn't kick him out immediately, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like she kind of allowed him to stay. And
Yep.
like there are reasons people do those types of things, a lot of complicated reasons, but at the same time it's just like, this person like kind of felt like it's like, okay, well I got away with that. you know
Hmm.
like I oftentimes, like, again, it's not quite the to the same degree that you do, because just the simple difference is I often, more therapy focused here and there. But when I
Hmm.
sometimes I do talk to young women about, like, when they're talking about relationships. And so I'm not like talking to giving people relationship advice is not usually what I do specifically, but I'm like, all right, how do we bring that back to you? And we talk a lot about like values, right? It's like, well, what do you value in a relationship? Well, I value this, this, this. Like, how, when was the last time you did that for yourself? And it's like, oh, I see what we're doing here. And so I think that's one of those things too. It's like, how do you see yourself? How do you value yourself? Like, what are the things that you like, that you think this person's deserving this, but do you feel you are? And sometimes people end up being like, I don't deserve those things. So it's like, okay, interesting. Let's start
Those are
there.
always happy. Hmm.
Right? And so that's
Hmm.
really interesting. And then, like, to go back to like Toki and Odin, I think it's one of those situations where two people. I mean, we could actually, Aziz pointed out Orohime as well, which I think is a perfect comparison. Like also similar when it comes to Orohime and
Ichigo.
not Ichiko. Oh, no,
You
not
said
Orohime. Oto. No, sorry,
your
Otohime from
also
like
Hime.
the
Okay.
yeah, Otohime. Sorry, my bad. Otohime and
So many
Neptune.
names. Hmm.
Right, yeah, I know. Oh my god. But it's like people who are just a perfect match, right? People who have like very similar personalities, dispositions, and values. And because of that, like, it wasn't hard for Toki to go back, and like also like it wasn't hard for Toki to go back and kind of just like, all right, keep doing the work that Odin was doing. But also Odin probably didn't even feel like he had to worry about it because he knew her so well. Like, he's just like, I'm not worried about my kids or her because I know who she is. Like, my kids are going to be great. And it sucks that I'm not seeing them right now, but like, by the time I get back, I know, like, it's not like he wasn't worried about the
Hmm.
West of Wano, although he was surprised how the fact that they didn't hate him. But again,
Yep.
like, he felt comfortable because like we are such in sync people. We make so much sense together that, yeah, I know she's just going to keep on doing the good stuff. Like, there's no question, because that's also just who she is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back into like, sometimes like you're like, oh, well, like, what have I heard? Like, oh, like, what was it? I'm trying to think of like all the stories I've heard.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe she did this. I'm like, but she did this. But there we go. You'd be
Yep.
like, oh, and I'm not excusing any form of DV, but
Hmm.
oh, she hit me, and I'm like, okay, but you saw her scrap that girl outside of a club,
Hmm.
so why would you think you're an exception?
Hmm. Yeah.
If this person has propensity to hit a stranger, why would they not potentially cause harm to someone that they love?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
These are things you have
Yeah.
to screen for. It's just like like I remember this one woman I was kind of interested in, and I heard her over say, I don't even like saying the word myself, but the B word, the
Hmm.
beach word.
Yeah.
And she's saying that about other women, and I was just like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm like, if you can say this about other people that look like you,
Hmm.
what would you say to me if we got into a fight in public? Because
Right.
that's how
Yeah.
you hear
That's.
those stories, like, you ain't shit, nigga, like,
Hmm.
and then I'm why am I surprised? Like, if you can talk about other people like that, then what are you going to say to someone that you're romantically involved with, right? Like,
Yeah.
having those things that you're actually looking at and screening through, as opposed to being like, oh my goodness,
Hmm.
they did
The
that. Hmm.
the
Sorry, go on.
vast oh no, sorry, the vast majority of like verbal and physical abuse is perpetuated by people who know each other closely, and people who like know someone closely. Like, it's much easier to do that when someone knows someone closely, right? So yeah, like, that's it's interesting. And again, we don't think about it that way, so that's why people tend to get surprised. But at the same time, like you're saying, like, you saw that, though. You saw that action.
They
You
just
saw
screamed
good.
at a cashier.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Someone who treats like a waiting staff at a restaurant poorly, that's like, okay, that's also a red flag. If they're gonna do that, like, be that rude to someone, like, especially if there's like no reason to, it's just like, that's okay. That's those are signs.
Right? And
Hmm.
even Lady Toki, she was ready to defend herself, and now we're going to transition to like the juicier parts of this episode, if you will. And even when Oden was around, she protected Momonosuke from the assassination attempt.
Yeah,
it was Momonosuke, right? Yeah, it was Momonosuke because he would be the higher.
Yes,
Yeah, she protected him. He didn't even have to be there. Of course, he was upset, but on the other hand, and I'm not trying to excuse like her getting hurt, but like he knew that their children are safe in her hands, even if he's not around, right? And we saw it. And going on the assassination attempt, Orochi.
Oh boy. Oh.
Kanjuro.
Oh boy.
ASAP Rally.
Ooh. So you're much more familiar with this. I watched that video.
Right.
But I'll yeah. Like anyway. Oh boy. Sucks.
Yeah, let's go. All right, so Orochi. I was like I said, me and Dedu were talking about doing an episode on Orochi himself, but it wouldn't be a productive episode. We would just talk about how we don't like him, especially being Nigerian and Igbo. We have seen a lot of, and also me being half Trini too, seeing a lot of corruption in African and Caribbean countries. Yeah. It just like we're not gonna like who's really shit? This guy. Yeah, let's talk about let's talk about how horrible he is. Yeah, remember when he lost one of his heads because the guy that he thought was using actually like tried to execute him, and it's just nothing's gonna come from it. But in terms of Orochi as a character himself, I think there's a really good conversation, which I'll open up to. So there's actually a quote. So I was looking at one of the characters in Guilty Gear, because like in Guilty Gear the characters have like different writings on them. I forgot to add in the notes on your side.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And so there's a quote that says, "Curiosity killed a cat," right? Killed the cat. Yeah. So this character in Guilty Gear, his motif is a lion, right? What's written on him? He's actually one of the kings in Guilty Gear, next to one of my favorite character, Kai in Guilty Gear. So the character's name is Leo Whitefang.
Oh, okay.
He has like on his swords. Oh yeah, you're a gamer, so you might know Leo.
I know the character.
Yeah,
he's very cool.
Right, and so on his swords it says Noblesse Oblige. His twin swords it says Noblesse Oblige, and on his belt buckle. So different characters who are in like the Crusades have like words written on them. So for a soul, it's free, because one of the things he values most is to be free and to make his own choices. For Kai, hope. For Leo, it says pride. And there's another thing I recently saw that's written on Leo, which I really think is testimony to this conversation about Oden, Orochi, and like I said, ASAP Rocky, and what happened with him, ASAP Rally. It's ignorance will kill a lion. I let that one sink. I'll say it again.
Yeah.
Ignorance will kill a lion. Right. So with regards to, as much as Oden was able to put the right people in his circle, that assassination attempt was because of Kanjuro, someone who was in the inner circle, and throughout the whole time that Oden went from being a child to being a daimyo, he was never aware of members of the Kurozumi tribe. Clan, I should say.
Yeah, and I know this is like something you talk about too, but I think you have this in your notes too, and it's just one thing I don't see enough of, and this isn't like, make it clear, this isn't to excuse their behavior. It doesn't, and you even cover this in your notes too, right? But like, the Kurozumi clan was did horrible things.
Yeah,
but their children were innocent.
To the father.
Exactly, right? And so Kanjuro saw his parents slayed on stage. And that destroyed his mind. They have kind of
forgot about that piece. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's just and it kind of it's like, well, my whole life is a play. Everything's just a play. Doesn't matter. I literally mean nothing. Like, he just lost his mind, just broke at that point, and that's horrible. That shouldn't have happened. And even Orochi, like, his life of having to run away, having his whole family slaughtered, and running away and hiding for all of his life. Those are horrible things. Those should not have happened. Those are things that people especially in Oden's clan should have acknowledged and been like, no, this is bad. Like, we need to actually support these kids. Like, that's not what we tried to save the country for. So those things should not have happened. Having said that, and I think, and I'm going to more leave this to you because I know it's in your notes here, but like, Orochi shouldn't have done, that doesn't excuse what he did.
No,
Orochi should not have done what he did at all, especially as someone who Oden, a person who he have seen is very happy and willing to support people who have done bad things, to have second chances.
And acknowledge the wrongs of the culture.
Exactly. Like, he is the man to do that. and
Yep.
Orochi should have known that.
Yep.
But he was too consumed. And again, you understand it on some level when that happens to you, but like it doesn't excuse
No excuse.
anything that he did at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
No,
Hmm.
that's exactly it. I would say Wano, the people of Wano, Orochi and Odin, were a victim of circumstance of the culture of Wano,
Yeah, 100%.
right? Because I know, like within, and this is also within our cultures too,
Yeah.
as Africans, like you know, how you represent your tribe, or in this case your clan, it
Mm.
speaks to everybody, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not just, and there is value to that, right? Because it makes you act more accordingly, right? Because
Yeah.
you're just like, if I go out as an Igbo man, I'm not just representing myself as a bear, I'm representing Nedu as well. So if they
Mhm.
see another Igbo man, because they'll be like, oh, so you're from the same tribe as a bear, well, we're gonna preemptively fire you. And it's like,
Mm.
I didn't, we don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith, I'm here
Yeah.
to tell you, you don't care. We
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
care.
Hmm.
Get out,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, there is value in that, but at the same time, there needs to be, once again, there's, like I said, just this absolute reverence for culture, which
Hmm.
I also appreciate Odin challenging in another aspect when it came to the Onigushima arc, where, like, you know, the samurai were willing to be like, yeah, I'm
Oh,
gonna die for my Bushido, for my family, and then, like, you know, what's the
yeah.
name, Jinbei and Usopp were just like, or not.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you live? That'd be pretty cool.
Like, why are you like just staying on this crashing island? Let's leave. Like, we don't have to die. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Usopp's little like speech there, he's like, you guys are nuts. I'm tired of this. Like, I can't remember all the wording for sure, but like one of the things is like, I'm gonna cling to life no matter how pathetic it looks. I'm gonna make sure to live. So I'm not gonna let you motherfuckers die.
yep.
It's just like let
And
me
then
go.
Jinbei said the same thing too. Jinbei in a different word, but he was just like, why are you guys dying? Like,
Yeah,
what honor is that? Why not live? And everyone's just
yeah,
like, yeah, that's
yeah. You know, like,
right. It's actually a great idea. Let's
oh
all
my
live.
god, I've
Let's all
never
make it home.
considered that.
Right.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah,
that was, I appreciate Odin even challenging, as a Japanese man, he was challenging Japanese culture and
mhm,
ways, because, you know,
mhm,
like I said, oftentimes we can be married to our culture, if you will.
yeah,
And so yeah, like everyone was just like, they just saw
mhm,
everyone from the Kurozumi clan as bad, and that's to the point where Orochi was persecuted for them thing he didn't do. So yeah, he got to the point where he's like, I'm in a leadership position, and I don't care if I'm going to make you guys suffer, because you guys made me suffer. I'm not here to see any of you guys thrive and prosper.
yeah, absolutely. Like a whole country. He's
Yeah,
just like, I'm gonna see you all pay.
yeah. You know what?
Hmm.
Slave labor, cool with it.
Yeah, yeah,
Polluting the environment and the waters, down for the cause.
yeah.
Getting paid by Kaido the colonialist,
Oh yeah,
absolutely,
a collaborator. Yeah, damn.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Take Odin out, love it. He didn't even do anything wrong to me, but guess what?
yeah,
Fuck the Kozuki clan. I'm
yeah,
here to see them burn,
yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone who's associated to them. Everyone. Did they do anything wrong to me? No. Do I care? No.
Nope, nope. It's like this whole country is gonna burn and they're gonna suffer. 20
Yeah,
years. That's like that's wild. Like
yeah,
that's
and
so intense.
yeah, and so I'm actually going to read, because like I really want to embody like everything that Orochi said, when, you know, Odin was just like, "Why are you doing this?" And
Hmm.
then, you know, Orochi ended up replying, "Listen, to me, every person in this country, Wano, is a sinner, guilty of persecuting the Korozumi clan. I'd be content to see them all die. I became the shogun to destroy this country, not to lead and maybe kind of harm. No, no, I'm here to see you
Hmm.
guys suffer. I'm here to see the world burn in a
Yeah.
different way from Doflamingo. Doflamingo just did random bad things. It didn't even make sense. Like, I'm just gonna come here and make everybody suffer. No,
It's just
for
so
like
evil.
no reason. Like, he had no reason. Like, there was no rhyme or reason for what he was doing.
Mhm.
Orochi, you could see the backstory. He was a deplorable person, but you could see, like, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Doflamingo was like, I'm gonna come back here because my family technically ruled here,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna kind of rule it, but I'm also gonna make people forget about their family members.
Yeah. Kidding.
Why? I don't know.
Guys
I'm
just guys cracked. Just
just gonna
nuts.
do it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna like use this country to make the smiley fact?
Mhm.
No. Are you gonna use this country to funnel the smiley factory in Punk? No. It's all separate. And even the smiley factory, I'm just doing it because it's gonna hurt people.
Yeah, he literally just wanted to hurt people. Like
Yeah,
that guy was absolutely bonkers just because for the sin of being lesser beings than him. That's literally what it is.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. He's like,
That's
and
like
even the
all it
people
is.
that are higher than him, he's like, I'm also gonna make you guys suffer too because you guys think you're in charge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm
For
just
being less than me, and also, yeah, the people who think they're a card, screw them too. Like, let's just make everyone hurt.
I'm also gonna help kind of the colonialists. It's like, but what? What?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't really have a reason.
yeah. But
I'm just here for it.
some
People
people like
addicted to drugs, 2 thumbs up.
he's just such a bad dude. It's so nuts.
Yeah,
He-
you saw how bad his backstory was, but he was like, I was always like this. I was
Yeah.
always
I was always a little devil, like literally, even as a child.
Yeah.
It's just like these people are garbage, and then also it's like, hey, why why are we eating like slaves? They're disgusting. We're not. Oh my god, kills
Yeah.
his own. Just everything about Doflamingo. Just he had a bad heart,
Yeah,
unlike his brother, who heart name literally means heart.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, and so like he's like,
Mhm.
and I'm here to. I became shogun to destroy this country.
Mm,
That will complete my vengeance. Like
yeah.
I'm not here to forgiveness. I'm not here to heal. I don't want therapy.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want therapy.
I don't want help. I don't want help.
He really
I'm
did.
too
Like,
far gone.
well, and that's exactly like he really didn't want help because again, like obviously Yasui took pity on him and stuff,
Mhm.
and then so did Odin.
Odin.
But like these are two men who are so honorable, like so two of the most honorable like people in higher positions in all of Wano. Like anyone would have been happy to get support from these folks, but not Orochi because Orochi's mind was again, like we said, like what happened is unjustifiable. But like he had he had a chance at that point, like, okay, but like now you can heal because these are people that will actually care about you. Like
Yeah.
they literally will care about
They
you.
could have pardoned. I'm willing to bet Yasui, if not Odin, especially if he came shonen, he would have pardoned the Kurozumi clan.
No doubt about that because like, hey, this is bullshit. This is bullshit.
Yeah.
Y'all do anything against these folks, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Like he 100%. Like we've seen him have those types of actions. So yeah, I have no doubt he would have done that.
Right. Yeah, and he goes on to say, apparently, and this goes back into being married to your culture. Apparently, even a child can be a criminal if they happen to be a Kurozumi from the Kurozumi clan. That's why everyone in Wano will suffer my wrath.
Yeah,
that's exactly it, right?
Yeah,
and so just kind of going back on our conversation on the movie Morning side, and we're going to touch on the ASAP mob situation in a second. One of the things I find for us as men. So one thing I would say when you're building a brand, we're building like your I don't have a new word than empire right now, but you what you build, it takes, and Ned, you know this, it takes a long time to build your brand, to build your reputation, to build who you are, right? And it just takes a moment. It just takes a mistake for it to all come down.
Yeah,
it doesn't take much.
Yeah,
and I would say a lot of us who look like us aren't aware of that, what legacy means, what building a brand, what building an empire, what building whatever you want to call it is. It doesn't take much. It just takes a few small mistakes. And, kind of going back on what happened in the movie Morningside, you saw how like his relationship, the guy, I don't know the name of the character, the light-skinned guy, you saw how his relationship fell apart just because he couldn't let go of his roadman friend.
Yeah.
If he cut him out, his life would have none of that would have happened. I'd be willing to bet.
Everything would have been completely different if he cut that guy out. Like, yeah.
But he still cut out. He said, "Oh, once I start thinking, we're cutting ties." It was already too late. You were saying in the movie in Morningside, like, aren't you tired of just having sex with women and selling drugs? And he's like, no, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Some people don't want more.
Yeah.
Some people don't. Some people don't. Just like Orochi, some people don't want to do better. Whether it's a victim of circumstance like Orochi, or you're just that's just how you are. You don't really see anything more in life. And for us as men, and this is the same thing with what I speculate with what kind of happened with ASAP Relly, is that for us as men, we don't we've been socialized to be aware of like the gold, the gold digger woman who got pregnant by you or got with you and then divorced you for half your money as soon as you made it. Or we know about those stories. I mean, we're very aware of those things. Some men fall into like his name, like what's his name, Travis Hunter, but that's a whole different conversation. But for the most part, we're aware of that, or we're aware of like, when we come up, there's that guy who kind of sneaks in, the manager, the accountant, he's slowly extorting us for, our resources. But we don't think about, and I've experienced this getting married. As men, we don't really think about, if it's the homie we went to high school with, or the homie that, used to come over to our mom's place when we were 5. Maybe it's him. And as you guys have been growing and rising and elevating yourselves, he's not happy with how much you've elevated. Even like what's his name in Bleach. I know you haven't really watched Bleach yet, but Bazmi and Hashwell, everyone keeps saying they have like, what a brotherhood relationship. I'm like, no, it's hella toxic, not healthy at all. Like,
which character is that? Sorry, because I know some.
The one with the fire fingers.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I'm outside knowledge of Bleach, but I do know who that is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and like him and Hashwell, the blonde guy, basically blonde Byakuya.
Yeah. He's the first. I was the same.
And Bazbi was with him until Hashwell started doing better.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And when he was elected to be like the second in command of the Quincy's, that's when Bazbi wasn't happy. He legit was just like, it was always supposed to be me. There's some people who just like, they just have, main character energy. You're supposed to be, the deuteragonist at best, and you're only supposed to see me rise. And once you rise past it, I'm not going to be happy for you. There's some people that are like that, and we don't really screen for those people as men that maybe that snake in the grass was with you since you were 5.
Yeah. And like the crappy thing is like, and sometimes I talk to some of these young men about this too. When you see that happen to your friend and it's not you, like a feeling of jealousy and frustration and anger, totally normal human feelings. What isn't is the fact is when you hang on to that, be like, no, that should be me, should be me. That drives you to the sense, this space of, well, I gotta get that guy, as opposed to like, how do I be happy with my friend, and B, find my own path? Like, it's or do I want to keep supporting them here? Do I want to keep supporting them here and work under them, or do I want to like support them and then do my own thing? Like, there are like, it's this idea, like, again, like we end up being crabs in the bucket as opposed to like helping raise each other up and being happy for people. Like, and then of course we, like the ones, like, when we're in these positions, it's like you said, we just expect, like, yeah, this is my guy, this is my boy, like, we're fine. Like, it's no question of whether you're fine or not, you just are. But like you said, that snake in the grass kind of was there the whole time. And how do you see that? How do you start realizing the signs?
Yeah, no, that's exactly. And I would actually, you made a really good point of saying like, why me? It's like, I would, for those people that think like that, I would say, instead of why me, ask yourself, how did he do it?
Yeah, maybe even ask him too.
And so that's what I was about to say. Have that humility to start asking questions. Because for me, when I see my friends doing really well in ways that maybe I want to, work on, if it matters to me, because some of my friends are doing great, I'm like, I don't really care for what you have. Like I said, like I have a friend who like, I have some people in my life who make like upwards of 6 figures. One of them is like a millionaire. I don't want millionaire problems. Millionaire people, like people who have money like that, they also have a different set of problems. I'm like, I don't want that. Having like getting lawsuits because your employee didn't do what they're supposed to. I don't want that. I don't want to go to court. Especially it would make me mad if I have to wake up and go to a place of something for something that someone didn't do properly, that I'm paying them to do it properly.
Yep. That would be like, come on, man. You should go.
Like, I'm paying you not to do this thing, and you did the thing. Like, these are the rules. Not to do, and you did one of the things. Now I have to go to court. What are we doing? Now I gotta pay the court and the lawyer for the thing that you did that I'm paying you not to do. Anyways,
no.
To ask those questions, right? As opposed to being in terms of being like, why not me? Maybe there's a reason, right? Kind of going back on the ASAP mob situation. So in terms of ASAP mob, to kind of paint the picture, there's a group that ASAP Yamps put together, rest in peace, when they were in high school. So these are friends who've known each other since high school. And one of the things I was hearing ASAP really say is that ASAP Rocky stopped seeing him and seeing them as a group as much since he's gotten married. And it's like, yeah, he's married
Yeah.
with two kids. He's not going to be, it's not like relationships change over time and now he's a father and he's a
Yeah.
husband. He's not going to have the same availability for the ASAP mob as when he was younger. And on another standpoint, maybe there's something you were doing as to why you're not seeing him as often.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't
Mm-hmm.
really ask those questions. Oh, he changed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the fact that either you didn't change or you changed as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And just really screening for those things. Like one of the things I'd praise Rocky for is like going with, I forgot who. I remember one of them is 12 when he went to go see meet with ASAP Really, where he used that situation to, you know, try to charge him with a crime, of a gun and battery crime. Is
Yeah.
the fact that he went with two of the other ASAP mob members. I give him points for that
Mm-hmm.
because you know, we think about like, oh, being, you know, entering that room with that woman and she might say something about you because there's no windows and cameras. Like, yes, that is definitely a real thing. We've seen it with Kobe Bryant and other people like that. You know, Johnny Depp, you know, even to make it, bring it home to anime, you know, now Fumi from Shield Hero, where we don't think about like, maybe it was that friend from high school said something about you too. And like, that's it, right? Like, it doesn't take that much for your reputation to be put at stake because he has nothing to lose.
Mm.
I never heard of ASAP Rally until this trial. Who is he?
Yeah.
I know 12 I know Rocky, I know Ferg, I know a good few of them. I've never heard of Rally.
Mm-hmm.
He has nothing to lose. You're the one who's Rocky, you're the one who's married to a billionaire wife and has two kids. You have far more to lose,
Mm-hmm.
right? To go meet with that friend because meeting, you know, it doesn't take much for that friend to, you know, put you at gunpoint,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we need to, as you even said too, Neto, we need to have a better way of kind of screening and watching out for those things that maybe that friend doesn't wish well for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like again, like I said, even earlier in our conversation, right? Talking about that, some of those young folks to talk to about like how do you support, like how you start to identify who the positive folks are in your circle, right? And
Mhm.
try to have a figure out how to have that conversation, especially early on, because early on, like you can start to recognize signs, and then again, when you start to also know, well, what is it that I value as far as friendships go? When people stop, like when those values aren't necessarily met in a relationship, then you get the choice of like, do I need to have a conversation with this person, figure out what's going on, or or is like, this person just isn't really it for me, right? So I got to step away, right? Like, you can actually have those thoughts and those feelings of conversation when you're able to start to recognize those signs, or recognize, what in you is kind of like, why am I dissing myself, or why am I having a harder time with this person?
Yeah, and you know, and so that's exactly it. And I think one of those things that we have to start asking ourselves more questions about those friends.
Hmm.
You know, I've lost some relationships, high school relationships, kind of going back on the whole Rocky situation,
Hmm.
for people who didn't wish the best for me,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And it was starting to, and you know, I'd speculate maybe the same thing with Rocky. You know, it started affecting my wife, right?
Hmm.
The things that they
Hmm.
were saying that they were doing,
Oh.
and as a husband now, right? I'm not single,
Hmm.
right? Like we change with life, we change with, you know, circumstance, relationships, and whatnot. If this is harming my wife, what type of husband am I? If
Hmm.
I'm, you know, I made a vow to God to protect her, but I'm putting her in harm's way for the sake of these people
Yeah.
who don't value her safety as much as I do.
Hmm.
And am I valuing her safety if I'm putting her in harm's way? Am I really making that vow to God, man? I
Yeah.
don't think I am if I'm moving like that, right? I'm
Hmm.
prioritizing other people who clearly don't value me as much
Hmm.
as opposed to how I was valuing them. And we
Yeah.
had to kind of start thinking, asking ourselves those questions of just like, is this person, because you know, too often we feel like I have to, I don't know if it's I can't speak on the female standpoint, but for often us as men, we feel like we have to keep everybody that we came up with us
Hmm.
as we keep going. And it's like some people fall off along the way. And I
Hmm.
think that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
That, you know, that friend that, you know, you used to play like Ninja Turtles with, you
Hmm.
know, on the SNES, on the Super Nintendo,
Hmm.
they don't want the same things as you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, I think we really do. And it's just like also being able to be like, hey, that's okay. People change. Like it's not always a devastating thing. Like sometimes it can feel that way, but also sometimes like, hey, like people change. Like sometimes it's not even that deep. Sometimes it's just y'all are different people. You're going for different things. That's okay. Other times it is definitely a case. Like I mean, again, like two things. Like hey, like I have a lot of pals that are married and or like they're in the stage with their kids. They're almost like their kids are almost 10 at this age, right? a
Right.
number of friends like that. And like I remember early on, like really early on, like I was with some of these folks, and they were just complaining about this couple, like, oh, now that they're together, this. I'm just like, I kind of had this moment, and it's not like I was like, oh, but defending them. I just kind of like, guys, like he's married, so of course it's gonna be different. Like what? Like I was more like a realization because we were all mad, and everyone was mad, and I remember not being as angry. And again, not because I was like all awakened or anything. It was more just like I think I just tend to be accepting of people's choices a lot. So I was just like, and then I kind of had
Empathy.
this moment. And then again, some folks were annoyed with me. Other people were like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, because we were pretty young. Like, I was like early 20s, but they were just like, I'm like, they're married. Like, they're trying to have a family. Of course, it's gonna be different. Like, yeah, that's not like bad. It's just different. Because I think that was like I had that realization then. And then I think for me as well, like the other thing is like a lot of my like most of my friends are women, right? Like, and even growing up, most of my friends were girls, and you know, I was like pretty close with a lot of them, and then sometimes when they get partners, like, and yeah, and frankly, I'd say even for those of them who have women as partners, like. I just like because I'm generally pretty touchy feely. I just like back off immediately quite a bit when they have a partner, and because like it's just out of respect of like the change in the relationship, right? Like it's just like, okay, well, like I'm probably not just gonna run up and hug them when I see them immediately, especially if they're a partner. Like, you know, like it, and it doesn't mean that I'm like completely cold or anything, but you just change the way you move because of the respect of the change of the relationship. So it's interesting that a lot of times we just expect, and the royal we, not us specifically, but
Yeah,
oftentimes, especially as men, like we're just like, well, if things changed, now I'm angry about it. But it's just like, okay, but like maybe let's take a moment. First of all, acknowledge the anger. That's okay because it's normal to be upset with change, but let's maybe take a moment and be curious about what's changing here and why it's changing
that's
and
all
what
it
this
is.
also means for us. Like what does this feel whenever we're angry about something? That's news for us. That's actually great information for us. So like what about that's getting under your gears? Is it because you hate that person that's getting because you were supposed to you, or maybe you feel a little inadequate, or maybe you also want that type of success? So how do you start moving towards that direction, right? Like there's so much interesting and good information we can get when we start feeling some kind of way when we see someone succeed.
Oh man, Nedu, you guys just got a therapy session for free. That's crazy.
It's almost like I do
Anger
it
is
for a living.
news for yourself. That's how you said it. That's what you said, right? Anger is
Yeah, yeah. And when you're angry, that's information. That's news. That's good knowledge for yourself when you get really angry about something, especially when you see someone succeed and get angry. That's actually great information. Like you really need to explore what's happening there because that's super valuable.
yeah, no, that's exactly it. So a lot of my when I got married, it was very divisive. It was a very divisive time. It was very
Mm.
stressful. I actually took a day off from all the
Oh.
stress, and with the stuff that we hear, you
Mhm.
and I are in a very similar field. So you and I hear some pretty dark stories,
Yeah.
right? And I know we talked about it before over the phone. It's like you just learn to compartmentalize. Otherwise, you'll never play video games or watch anime. You just like, well, wow, okay, well, that was traumatic. I'm definitely gonna just lie down and do nothing for the rest of the day, right? You gotta learn to just compartmentalize and also get a therapist. We both do have therapists.
Mm.
And what was I gonna say? And to my friends as well, who have known since high school, like they both had, as much as like it was very divisive, like some of them were just like, it's not like a bear has been married before
Mhm.
or has had a wedding before. So how is he supposed to know what to do? And to just have
Mm.
that compassion and empathy, like
Yeah.
how is he supposed to know these things, right? How are
Mhm.
you supposed to have all the right answers? Is to have that compassion and understanding. But some
Yeah.
people don't have that. Like I said, like the guy was saying, in terms of the ASAP mob situation, like, oh, what's his name? Like, ASAP Rocky stopped visiting us, and just like, yeah, like he has a family. Like, what
Yeah.
were you expecting him to do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's not 15. He's not 16 anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he stopped seeing us. Like, guys who's probably spending his time with his family, dude. Like, that's normal.
It's normal, right? And so
Mm.
at the same time, that almost was his undoing. And it goes
Mm.
back, like I said, to the quote, like ignorance can kill a lion.
Yeah.
Odin, only upon coming back from his second go around on the oral go with the Roger Pirates, that he realized that,
Mm.
excuse me, that Orochi is part of the Kurozumi clan.
Yeah.
So as much as like he could have pardoned them, and Oroshi's story is also very similar to what happened with Killmonger 2 and Black Panther. There's a quote
Yes.
called, um, if the child doesn't feel the warmth of the village hug, he will burn the village to feel the warmth. And yeah, Orochi burned everything.
Oh boy, did he ever! God Lord.
In fact, Onigashima actually he set Onigashima on fire.
He did. He like literally burned the place down. Like yeah, he absolutely set it on fire.
Right, very very figurative. I wouldn't be if Oden did it on purpose, knowing him.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the idea of just paying attention to the people around you.
Yeah.
At all times. Not to say you shouldn't trust people, because he was able to trust Lady Toki and the other scabbers, but because he also didn't realize who Kanjuro was too. So there's 2 Kurozumi members, and he only was aware of one the whole time.
Yeah,
because
he absolutely should have known.
Exactly right. It's so it's an uncomfortable thing to say, but you and I were talking about it in when we were texting about it, and I put a lot of the response of what happened of Wano, especially Oden's execution, on Oden. Right. You know, like I said, the saying is, you know, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Yeah.
You should have been able to deduce those things about those people around you, that, you know, not everyone is trying to see you prosper. You should have been aware of what's going on with the Kurozumi clan, right? It's irresponsible to not have seen those things. Even for me, I put a lot of the responsibility of when I was falsely accused, right, on me. Because I, in a sense of going back on ignorance killed the line, I didn't realize how much I built already, and how easily that could have crumbled. Granted, a lot of it was salvaged, but I'm sure some people already have some perspectives on me. Some of those people already had a negative view of me as well, so there's nothing. That's what it is. But I should have been aware of someone may not want to see me happy and prosper, right? And it's okay to acknowledge those things, that some people are like that. Some people are like, is this nigga happy? Prospering? Is he thriving?
Not on my watch.
Not without me?
Yeah.
More than me?
Yeah.
Not on my watch.
You know, my like I probably shouldn't say too much about, but like I know someone, and they were telling me that back in the day when they were coming up as a therapist, and they're a brilliant therapist. They're like actually like their skills are really next level.
Right.
They were telling me when they were doing a placement, like this is part of the reason why they ended up doing their own thing, because anytime they worked in any space of authority, they actually started like surpassing their trainers, like their trainers, their preceptors, like anyone who was, and they were just like, I remember them telling me that they had just a situation, and like, and there were 2 things. One, the fact that they go by they them was making their advisor really angry for no good reason. The other thing is that they were really damaged.
Ironically enough, sorry.
Yeah, I know. Again, like the irony is there's a lot of folks in our field who also are not aware of their own selves, and they're dangerous, right? Like, and so the fact that they them was like kind of making their brain do backflips, but also the case that the fact that this person, they were incredibly good, and as someone that their instructor was struggling with, they figured out a lot of great things for this person. Like that person started moving forward. Their instructor lost their mind and basically started trying to ruin their career. So, you know, and it's just like, and I remember them just telling me, like, I was so shocked, because I was like, shouldn't we just, like, why do you care about this? We should just be caring about the person. Like, how is someone that I'm supposed to be, like, who's supposed to be, like, the person I'm looking up to actually trying to destroy me, right? And, like, it's sometimes the people that should be helping lift you up end up being the ones taking you down, or trying to take you down, right? And it's just like, that's so unsafe. And then in the end, even what you're saying about your own experiences, like these folks here, you're just like, you hadn't even realized what you built. Like you hadn't realized the kind of like the space that you built for these young folks, and people probably felt threatened by that too, you know?
Yep. No, exactly it. And like what was I gonna say? And when it comes to this level of ignorance, and not being aware of what you have and what you've built, you know, when it comes to ASAP Rocky situation, the people that are hurt most, secondarily, would be like the ASAP mob in general, but the people who hurt most is Rihanna and their 2 children.
Right.
Those are the people who were impacted most by Rocky's, for lack of a better word, carelessness. Right. In the case of in the case of myself, it was the youth I was working with, the youth in Dorset Park. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's impacted me, but I recovered. But they're the ones who lost me for like what, 2 years? No, a
Mm-hmm.
year,
Yeah.
right? Suddenly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the case of Wano, sorry, in the case of Oden, the people who were hurt most was Momonosuke, Hiyori,
Mm-hmm.
Lady Toki, the Nine Scabbards, and Wano.
Yeah. 20 years. Yeah. Like they literally like his whole country, like everyone ended up because of that carelessness, that lack of understanding exactly
Lack of
who was in his,
awareness.
that
Mhm.
yes, that lack of awareness of who was truly in his circle ended up making the whole country suffer.
Right? Like even for
Mm,
me, like going even too, like my whole wedding situation, the person that was hurt most, Deb was crying
mm,
like bad.
no.
She's like, why is this happening? Why are they talking to you like this? Why are they treating you like it hurt her? And that's what really had to make me take a step back. Obviously, I spoke with my therapist at the time, but like I shouldn't be putting Deb through those situations. Like
Hmm.
that's not fair to her. And I have to take responsibility for the pain that was causing her. And we have
Yeah.
to be really aware of like when we're building something, we're doing something, like it's not just for us, there's other people that are going to be impacted by our choices or lack thereof choices.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think we covered a lot of things in terms of Wano. I
Hmm.
think, and specifically Odin.
Yeah.
He's definitely my second favorite character in One Piece. I think it was
Oh.
like Luffy,
Hmm.
but Gear 5 is really cool. Like Luffy
Yeah.
through lightning, it's fucking crazy, and like he
Year
spun.
five was pretty wild.
Yeah, it was wild. Like this,
Yeah.
Gobble Gobble, no, coming. I was like, wait,
Like,
what?
oh, that was so cool. Yeah. God
Uh,
damn.
but no,
Hmm.
I just look. It was the end. That's what really won me over with Wano with Odin, where he was saying,
Hmm.
I know, like how they talk about the masculine urge.
Hmm.
It was, it was. I've lived my life to the fullest. I would be happy for my tears to be shared over a glass of alcohol.
Hmm.
And I was
Hmm.
like, that's it. That's
Yeah.
that's what I'm working. That's what I think we should all work towards it. But that's what I'm working towards. Like for my stories to be told,
Hmm.
the same way as like my grandfather. Like I know of his stories. Like I
Hmm.
said, I think we talked about in a previous episode, and I only just found out like his Igbo name like
Mm. Yeah, you
last
were
year.
saying. Yeah.
It's that legacy. Like
Hmm.
that's what I'm working towards. Even if people
Yeah.
don't know what I look like, but just to know what I did.
Hmm.
And I love
Yeah.
how Odin said that, where he's like, you know what, I did something. I left an
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I really like that. Like, um, one thing that just like Odin's introduction, I thought was super funny and super interesting, right? Where it's just like there's that funeral pyre, and then he just walks and just starts having Odin on the man's bones. Everyone's like, "What is he doing? The disrespect!" People are crying and stuff,
Yep.
which is like, and he's just like, in his head, he's like, "I know you loved Odin so much. You loved our meals, so like this is like to honor you and stuff." Like it's just like he knows this guy. He knows this guy would have been like, "Hell yeah, like eat some Odin on my bones. That's fucking fantastic." Like he's just like Odin just so is unabashedly himself and lives life to those standards of like he's always very true to himself. Like
Hmm.
again, I always think about One Piece is a really big on perception, right? And like people's
Hmm.
stories and like of course people like Gold Roger was a bad dude, but Gold D Roger seems like pretty upstanding guy. Luffy's a monster. Yeah, he seems okay. And like
Yep.
that's a big theme in these things. But it's like the people who truly matter are the ones that truly know, and the people who truly know are the ones that have been positively affected. So it's like even though people like Goldie Rogers a terrible person, all the people that he's helped still remember that to this day.
Yep.
Luffy, they're like, oh, he's a monster. All the islands that he's saved, they're just like, nah, dog, we fly his flag. We don't care what you think. And I think that's like the interesting thing about like legacy, where it comes down to like the people who truly were touched and affected and supported by your actions, they're going to keep that part of that legacy is their own happiness and safety, and them being able to provide that happiness and safety for other people, and that going on and on and on. And that's like, that's not legacy. I don't know what is.
Bars. That's exactly it.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's about legacy and people keeping that alive by impacting people. And like I said, it's the people who really don't want it, because Odin didn't want to be a daimyo, let alone
No,
show.
God, no, no, he really did not want that shit. He's like, I don't want that heat. I want to be able to do what I want. Like again, he just like looks annoyed. Like that's my memory of Odin's like, Odin, you're gonna be a great leader. Just
He
that
looks
face.
annoyed.
He looks annoyed. Some good stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I
Mm-hmm.
hope you guys enjoyed this episode, talking about leadership through Odin. Leaders are meant to be legends.
Well done. Hell
Thank you.
yeah.
For those that watched that, like, yeah, I had to do the whole
Yeah.
reenactment because that was a powerful scene at the end. I loved
Yeah.
it.
Oh, that was one of the most impactful deaths in One Piece. That was
Man,
nuts.
one of the most for real.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode on Leaders Are Meant to Be Legends. We're out. Take care.
Have a great night.
Or day.
Or day, right. Whatever time of day.
Whatever when you're watching it. Probably is going to be at night, knowing people. So, Ned was right.
All good.